Clerk. Please take roll call.
Jason Giard,
Here.
Carl Hubner, David Smith,
Here.
Megan Malcolm,
Here.
Erin Pellegrini,
Here.
and Pinkerton Student Liaison Jack Cameron.
Here.
And also seated at the board table is CFO Jeff Dowd and Superintendent of Schools Bob Thompson.
At this time, I'd ask that everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I would ask that our new board member, Dr. Carl Hubner, please lead us in the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. To begin this evening, I just want to take this opportunity to thank former board member Caitlin Parnell for her many years of service on the Hampstead School Board. Caitlin was instrumental in the separation of the Timberlane School District and the Hampstead School District. And personally, I had the opportunity early on this time last year to work with Caitlin as I transitioned into the superintendent of schools role. And I credit Caitlin in part for my decision to come to this community. She was the utmost professional, and she will certainly be missed by members of this board. I'd also like to take the opportunity to introduce Dr. Carl Hubner, who was elected to the Hampstead School Board. I've had the opportunity to work very closely with Dr. Hubner, who serves on the Strategic Planning Committee. And at this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to Dr. Hubner to see if he'd like to make comment.
I'm just really glad to be here. I appreciate the community supporting me. I grew up in Hampstead. I went to school here, so I'm really excited to be involved and to help out with the school district. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Hubner. Okay, so at this time, we're going to look for nominations from the floor for the chairperson, who will serve as the chairperson for the 2022-2023 term. Just as a reminder, nominations do not require a second. After a nomination is made, I will ask 3 additional times for any other nominations. So at this time, I would ask, is there a nomination from the floor for a chairperson for the Hampstead School District?
I will nominate David Smith for chair.
Jason Giard nominates David Smith. Are there any other nominations for school board chair? I'll ask again, are there any other nominations for school board chair? And I'll ask one last time, any other nominations for school board chair? All right, seeing that there are no other nominations, I would ask for we'll vote at this time. All those in favor of David Smith serving as the Hampstead School Board Chair, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any noes? Okay.
Of course not.
All right, at this time, I will turn the meeting over to Chairperson Smith.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Thank you, board members, for nominating me. I won't say a lot. You'll hear a lot from me during the year, so we will go right into looking for a nomination for the vice chair for the 2022-2023 school year.
I would like to nominate Jason Giard.
All right. Any other nominations? I'll ask only one more time, not twice, 2 more times. Any other nominations? All right. So nomination from Erin Pellegrini for Jason Giard for vice chair. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstains? All right. So we've got our chair and our vice chair for this year. So welcome, Jason, and welcome school board members for this next school year. At this point, we're going to look at appointments for additional appointments for the 22-23 school year. We will be looking for a motion to recommend to allow the superintendent or designee to seek legal counsel when necessary with firms that are most appropriate.
So moved.
All right. Motion by Jason. Was there a second?
Second.
Second by my friend Megan. Any discussions? All right. All approved, please raise your hand. All right. Thank you very much. Next is for the school board clerk. So right now, we're going to be looking for a motion for the recommendation of Melissa Post as the school board clerk. I have a motion for this.
So moved.
Motion by Aaron, seconded by Jason. Discussions? All right, all approved, please raise your hand. Thank you, Melissa, for being there for us.
My pleasure.
All right, the next one is our, what we do on a yearly basis for representation for a school board member to be a part of the New Hampshire School Board Association and to be the delegate. This past year, I believe, Megan, you had been in the past for this. I don't know if you want to give an overview of what this position entails and what you had done in the past.
Sure. So there's a meeting in the winter. It's about a half-a-day session, and the school board members, it's in Concord, and we all get together, and the word is slipping my mind, but school boards bring forth, what is the name of
The bills?
what is it?
Policies.
Policies for recommendation in front of the Hsdsb. And those policies then are, if supported, brought to the state. It was in person last year. I assume it'll be in person this year. I did attend the year before, my first year on board, and it was virtual. It was very difficult that way. But it's very interesting. You get to meet people from around the state on different boards.
All right. Is there anybody that would like to volunteer for this?
I mean, I'll do it again.
All right, looks like we have a volunteer. Thank you, Megan, for doing that again. All right. Next is the bonding of a school district officer. So I'm going to look to a recommendation to bond the treasurer as required by the statute in Department of Revenue Administration regulations. So for this, I'm just looking for that recommendation for a motion for this. So moved. All right. Motion by Jason. Looking for a second.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All right. All approved, please raise your hand. All right. Next is the designation of the bank depository. Again, this one looking for a recommendation to appoint TD Bank as the district bank.
So moved.
Motion by Megan. Looking for a second.
Second.
All right. And second by Dr. Hubner. So with that, any discussions? Not, please raise your hand if you approve. Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. So now we're getting the good stuff in a few minutes for all those kids that are here watching this. We'll get some good stuff in a little bit. Right now we're going to go into our policies and procedures that we review on an annual basis. So board members, in your packets, you have 3 policies and procedures to review. The investment policy, DFA. We also have the risk management policy, I think it's EL. And the controls over expenditure of funds procedure. I believe this one, Melissa, we're not looking for any type of approval on this, correct? This is just saying that we've reviewed these. Is that a correct statement?
That's correct.
Okay. So board members, I just take a couple of minutes to look over this. For those that are new, as it said, the first one is about what, our investment policies. Dr. Hubner, the next one is on a risk management policy. Again, there's a few paragraphs in there if you want to take a look at it. If there's any questions, by all means, it's the appropriate time to ask. And the last one is the controls over expenditures fund. Again, any questions you can certainly ask anyone here about those right now or at a later time. Thank you. Board members, you're all set? All right, so next, board members, in front of you in your packet is the scheduling of regular meetings, dates and times. So take a look at that schedule that starts in August 9th. Again, that's one that's tentative. We decide later on if we're going to do that one or not. Typically, we do skip that one, but in case if there's enough going on, we may hold that. But after your review, I am looking for a recommendation to hold the school board meetings on the second and fourth Tuesdays of each month at 7 p.m. at the middle school cafeteria, as presented in the package for the 22-23 meeting schedule.
So moved.
All right.
I'll second that.
Motion by Jason, seconded. Is Aaron?
Is
Yep. Okay. And seconded by Aaron. Any discussions, any questions from anyone on this? All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next is the annual signing of the ethics statement. Again, in front of you is the Code of Ethics. There you go. Melissa, with the Code of Ethics, we'll sign this and get it to you after? Is
Yes,
that-
that's fine.
Okay.
Or you could sign it and leave it in the board packets, either way.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you. All right, so that takes care of our reorganization meeting. I will be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right,
I'll second that.
seconded by Aaron. Don't think any discussions, but if there are any. All right, all approved, please raise your hand. All right, thank you very much. All right, so now we're going to open up the regular meeting, Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022, at approximately 7:13 p.m. Ask Melissa to call the order.
Jason Giard. Carl Hubner.
Here.
David Smith.
Here.
Megan Malcolm.
Here.
Erin Pellegrini.
Here.
Pinkerton Student Liaison, Jack Cameron.
Here.
Thank you. And also seated at the board table is CFO Jeff Dowd and Superintendent of Schools Bob Thompson.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, so board members, in your packet, there are sets of meeting minutes from February 15th, the regular meeting minutes, and then the non-public meeting minutes from February 15th. If you can take a minute to read over that, and then I'll be looking for a motion to accept both of those.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept both sets of minutes from February 15th, 2022.
All right, motion by Mr. Giard,
Second that.
second from Aaron. Any discussion? All right, then I'd look for a raise of hands for all approved. And abstain? Right, how was it? You have to raise your hand for abstain.
Oh, say, okay. Oh, yeah.
So four for it and one abstain.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take care of you, don't you worry.
Thanks,
We
bud.
got you.
Appreciate it.
All right. All right. Melissa, do we have anyone for public comments?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. All right, now comes the exciting part. Here we go, for everybody here. Ms. Denola, if you wouldn't mind joining us to talk about the school highlights.
evening, everyone. Nice to see you. It is my pleasure to share all the exciting things that are happening at Hampstead Middle School. We were going to start off this evening with our Destination Imagination team, and we are very proud of their work. These students have been together for many years, and I have to thank first Mrs. Meredith Eyre and Mrs. Sarah Wise-Carver for guiding these students to third place in our state in Destination Imagination. And I would like to just invite Julian Malcolm to come up and share his experience with you. Julian. And Ty. And everybody. Everyone's coming. And they're all taller than I.
So, hi, everybody that doesn't know me. My name's Julian Malcolm, and I'm on the 7th grade Destination Imagine team, along with Andrew Conti, Ty Wise-Carver, McKenna Eyre, and Angelina Azizi. Evelyn Young is also on our team, but she's not here today, unfortunately. So, we just competed at the statewide tournament, which was, where was it? Amherst, which was in Amherst. We competed for the technical challenge, which was the Daring Escape, where we had to build 2 devices. One could be electrically powered, and one had to be anything other than electrically powered, to go over 3 hazards that we built in, I guess, escape. We built a drill with an electrical motor to, make it spin, and we built a plane that used a rubber band propeller to move. For our hazards, we made uneven terrain, a tunnel, and a ramp or hill, whatever way you want to look at it. And we got 3rd place in our age group, and I'd say we all did really well, and we had fun, and it's all about the experience. Does anyone else want to say anything? All right, thank you.
Before you go, come back. So just hot off the press, these came in today. I would like to just present you with your certifications and some hardware. Congratulations, DI. I'm going to just start with Ty Wise-Carver. Just congratulations. Evelyn Young is not able to be here with us today. Andrew Conti, Andrew, and McKenna Eyre. Angelina Abrazizi. And Julian. Thank you. And Julian Malcolm. And we have some hardware. They just came in today. This is very exciting. Round of applause for our DI team, please. Thank you very much. And next, I'd like to welcome our cheer team up to the podium. Come on up. And thank Mrs. Lisa D'Ambrosio for her leadership, for bringing us to all kinds of competitions this year. And come on up, everyone. Yes. And they got hardware, too. You can bring the hardware. Oh, my goodness, yes.
Oh, yeah, and then I'll introduce them. Hi, my name is Lisa D'Ambrosio. I'm a seasoned cheer coach, first year here in Hampstead. Middle school is a challenging organization to run just because of the age difference. I have 5th graders and also 8th graders, so keeping the drama to a minimum and teach them skills is a skill in itself, but they did excellent. We came into this as the underdogs. We were a fairly new team. I had 6 girls out of my 13 that's never stepped on a mat before. They showed up to win. We had obstacle after obstacle this year. Through COVID, we had a lot of absentees. We had injuries. and they pulled through. Our first competition was in South Nashua High School. We came in first place. Want to raise up that trophy? Sheer madness. Our second competition was the Tri-County, and we came in runner-up on that, second place. Hold that up. And our last competition was the Astro Blast, which is our Pinkerton. This is our big one. This is our bragging rights one. This is the exciting one, and we came in first on that as well.
Nicely done.
So just as experience with a coach, it's not just about the hardware, bringing it in. It's about teaching them the love of the sport and teaching them lifelong lessons with it, and to compare the, you guys are so cute. I'm going to miss them. They're my 8th graders. They're going to be going. It's not about the hardware. It's about the love for the sport and who returns next year. So that's how we'll know if it's a successful year. So I have 2 representatives. One happens to be my daughter, and Sarah Urban. Want to come on up, ladies?
Okay, so I'm Sarah Urban,
I'm Sophia D'Ambrosio.
and this season was really challenging because of COVID and also, again, like Lisa said, a lot of injuries. But the best part of the season was definitely getting to the comps, feeling that adrenaline rush, and seeing everyone come together as a team. It was like a bond, it was a family. Drama was definitely a minimum, which was great, and everyone was just so successful, and you could really feel all the love for the sport.
Our hard work this year really paid off, and it's been an honor and a privilege to be speaking to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Wonderful season. Can't wait to see next year. Thank you. I have to say, Coach D'Ambrosio was unbelievable. She just really taught these young athletes and student athletes so many life skills that it was a wonderful season. And as administrators, it was a wonderful season. You took care of things so well. So very proud of you. Very proud. Moving on. Just telling you a little bit about our girls A basketball team. They had a great year. They finished 4th in the division, and a big thank you to Coach Ingraham for a wonderful season. Boys basketball, Coach Flaherty. Coach Flaherty, he's still lining them up there. I just love Coach. We made it to the playoffs at Raymond with 5 wins and 7 losses. Ended up in a tie with 5th place for the Tri-County Division III Conference. Congratulations, Boys A. The Boys B basketball team ended the regular season with a 5-7 record and the number 6 seed heading into the playoffs. The team worked very, very hard. They lost eventually to the champion Timberlane in the semifinals. And a thank you to Coach Nick Arroyo for an outstanding season as well. The girls B team finished the regular season with an 8-4 record and hosted the quarterfinal playoff game here at Hampstead Middle School as the number 3 seed. Unfortunately, they were upset by the Raymond team in the quarterfinals in a tough game, and that ended the season. Thank you for all of our winter sports athletes. We had a very good season. We learned to be very flexible and turn on a dime. And now we start spring sports next week. We will be on Depot Road for boys for baseball and softball. We will have tryouts starting next Monday, and then track will start the week after that. So please check the athletics website for updated information. So I thank you, athletes, so very much for being here and Destination Imagination. This is so important for our school board to see your faces again, and I can't tell you enough. You got to see a little bit of the democratic process in place at the very beginning. Remember I told you the nose goes in the boring part of the meeting? And they are here and working for you all the time. And they put themselves out there to volunteer and be your voices for many boring things, but many things that make your education be improved and to keep you face front. And this is what this is about. So I thank you, Mr. Thompson, for encouraging the students to be back and participate in our school board meetings like we've done in the past. So thank you. If you want to leave, because I have other things, you can, unless you want to stay and continue to be with me. It's up to you.
Mr. Nola, if
Yes.
you don't mind? before
No,
they do,
please,
just-
Mr. Smith.
I think, I'd like to appreciate you all coming out. I was part of Olympics of the Mind, Odyssey of the Mind way back when I didn't have gray hairs, but it's really great what you said too is about, it's about the relationships, about the experience. So embrace this, love this, cherish it. You'll be talking to your friends in 30 years. I still talk to my friends from that because of the relationships and the bonds. So it's just great what you all did. So, and thank you to the coaches. Selflessness, the volunteering there. Lisa, I remember when you were putting out there that you're starting up a cheerleading, and what you went through to get this going too. So for both, really appreciate what you did in representing Hampstead and just being part of the community. So anybody else wants to say anything?
Yeah, I definitely want to. I had the honor of being part of that.
A few years back, and actually, Meredith's team won first place, and I'm pretty sure I filmed a video of the shock. Which was quite amazing to see. I know how hard that is, and how much work is put into it, and I commend you all for all the hard work. Great job. And yeah, congratulations. So much hard work. I look at what you guys do, like, I know this way.
No.
So, congratulations, job well done. Thank you so much for taking that on and then allowing me to have that.
Yeah, thank you. Nope.
May I just redirect what I said? Could you just stay for just like another 4 or 5 minutes? Because there's more things, and it includes a few of you here in the audience. So I think it'd be good for your peers to be here. Thank you. We are moving to Legally Blonde, and I hope many of you got to see it this past weekend. It was a blast. It was a blast. So I'd like to welcome Mabel Bachman, our own Paulette in Legally Blonde, to talk to you a little bit about her experience. She's an 8th grader, and I've been so blessed to watch her grow from 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and your voice is beautiful, and your drama, your presence on stage continues to marvel me. And she was just part of the oratorical contest today, along with Sarah Urban, and they just rocked it. And it's after a production week. It's amazing. So Mabel, please share.
So we did Legally Blonde as our spring musical this year, and it went super well. Obviously, there were lots of challenges on the way. People were so shy and nervous at the beginning, but it was amazing to see them grow throughout the process. We weren't sure if we were going to be ready in time because it seemed so rushed, but honestly, we actually pulled together so well, and the end was just an amazing result. And yeah, it was a super fun show to be in, full of lots of really amazing themes.
Thank you so much. We had 50 members participate in Legal Blonde, and if you saw the backstage setting, the crew, the stage crew, it was just so much fun, and I thank you very much. I wonder what's going to be next year. When are they going to announce it, you guys? It'll be great. Next, I'd like to just point out just quickly a visual. There's our hydroponics. It doesn't look like much right now, but it is, the seeds have cracked and they are blossoming. And we have basil and, what kind of lettuce is that, guys?
Butter crunch.
What?
It's on here.
All right, that's there.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks a lot.
Carl.
So, they're butter crunch lettuce. And so we are partnering with the community garden, and I just have to thank Mrs. Griffin and Mr. Remillard, who are leading our teachers and advisories and planting seeds in their classroom over the next month and growing them in the hydroponics and transferring them to our community garden for a wonderful opportunity to support agriculture in our community and sharing with those members of our community that could benefit from it. today, we had 15 of our 8th graders participate in the American Legion Oratorical Essay Contest. These students develop their public speaking skills throughout this process. It is a little nerve-wracking for the entire class. This is part of their social studies curriculum. And up until yesterday, we weren't quite sure who was still going to take that leap. And we had 15 brave students come out and present in front of their class, in front of judges. And I'm very pleased to announce that we have our 2 top winners are Sarah Urban, our cheer team, and Samantha Bell. We have honorable mentions of trainer Mayu, Mabel Bachman, and Dominic Fazio. So the students' speeches, they demonstrated deep understanding of our Constitution. They each picked an amendment that they spoke about in depth and related it to their classmates and to the judges. They developed this important lifelong skill, and speaking in public, which is, as we all know, and we spoke about this cheer team before it, it's one of those skills that brings you through job interviews at Market Basket to interview when you're going for any other job opportunity. So those are lifelong skills. I have to thank Mrs. Katie Wolf for bringing this forward. Our top finalists will compete at West Running Brook this weekend. So they just today, and then they're on that venue in the weekend. So congratulations to our speakers and all those that participated. I listed our Hawk Awards for Term 2 for you in your presentation. On Friday, we have Josh Judge, Channel 9 meteorologist and dad of one of our 8th graders. He will be presenting to our 8th grade students as part of Ventures and our science curriculum. And it's with regards to the standards that study the factors that determine climate, how ocean currents affect climate, and extreme weather. Students will prepare questions regarding the role of a meteorologist in a broadcast company and the educational preparation and pathways for this exciting career. National Kindness Month. We are wrapping up our National Kindness Month. It got interrupted by a snow day, and then we're just continuing with kindness. And that's part of it right there, be the eye in kind. And we had our Sunshine Squad put together all kinds of messages of kindness on everyone's locker. They made, can you help me with this? How do I say the word? The kind of bracelets? Thank you. That's exactly. And they're still making them to this day. You can see them hanging on kids' lockers, and they're sharing these gifts of kindness throughout the day. And just a few other things that have come up. I just want you to know that the field trips, we have the 5th grade going to the Seacoast Science Center. That will be June 3rd. And then we have our 6th grade going to the Freedom Trail on June 10th. More information coming, and other things being planned for our upper grades. We had March 14th was Pi Day. We had a lot of fun Pi Day. 3.14 bala hala 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 hala. Yes, Miss Hewitt, yes. We had a lot of fun with that, and some pies in the face. That was all in good cheer. And just another thing to share with you, all of our 6th grade students in their health education classes receive training from the American Heart Association through our health curriculum in first aid training. And all 8th graders have been recertified in first aid, and they are certified in CPR and AED training. So I'm thinking we probably should have 8th graders here anytime we have a public event. They are certified. So thank you to Mrs. Muskrat for continuing this 20-year tradition of having our kids certified in CPR and AED. Awesome. And I'd like to thank the PTSA for decorating our school with some lovely St. Patrick's Day decorations and treats around on March 17th. It put a smile on all of our faces. And last but not least, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome Governor Chris Sununu and Miss Kati Preston, a Holocaust survivor. She will address our 7th and 8th grade students here, because we now have wonderful live streaming opportunities. And she will be here with the governor at 8:30 in the morning. And there will be a question and answer session following the presentation, where the students will prepare some questions for our guests. The governor is very excited to be here. He's just so excited to be face to face and be part of Ms. Preston's message of empathy, resilience, and acceptance. So we have a lot going on here at Hampstead Middle School. And Jack, it's so good to see you. I remember you this big. So good to see you in serving in this way. That might be one of you someday. He's at Pinkerton, and he is the student liaison for Pinkerton Academy. And he is graduating this year. So if any of you are looking at his position, it pays a lot of money, right, Jack?
Certainly.
Certainly. Any questions, dear board?
No, this is great. Really appreciate all the updates and information, and of course, everybody showing up tonight.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Hawks, and parents and advisors and supporters.
Thank you very much. We'll give you all a minute just to, unless you want to sit around and talk about some of this stuff too, as they run. Yep. And then there was 2. Thank you, Ms. Nolan. That was really great. Get a glass of water. All right. We're going to move on to current business now with, first, next on the agenda is the elections results. Oh, Jack, what did I miss here? Sorry about that.
Okay, so as Mrs. Denola mentioned...
Let me, sorry, I want to introduce Jack. Sorry about that. I skipped right over. I was so excited to talk about election results. So just want to mention we do have the Pinkerton Liaison with Jack Cameron, and we really appreciate you being here, Jack. We've had this void for a little while, which we really miss, hearing the updates. And, one thing that I would like to, besides introducing you and have you talk to Pinkerton, I'd also like in the coming weeks, as in the future board meetings, talk about how we can better utilize the liaison in the future of hearing the updates, but also try to inform the board more about what's going on and how can we help students and inform the administration here how we can better help the students be prepared for Pinkerton, because it is going quite different, right? 400 to 3,200, it's quite a big difference. But so just looking forward to tapping that resource there and talking about that in the future too. But Jack, if you want to give us updates.
Yeah, so my name is Jack Cameron. I am the current student liaison to Pinkerton Academy. I intend to fulfill this role as obviously representative from Pinkerton Academy, its students, and its interests to best update the board, the general public, and provide that student perspective to our school board. Well, obviously, as we've mentioned, Pinkerton Academy is a giant school, so I will do my best to provide updates on as many things as I reasonably can, both upcoming events in the next few months for the 2022 school year, and events that we've had for the past couple of months while we haven't had a student liaison. So I'm going to start with progress reports. Progress reports will be finalized on April 4th for the first half of semester 1, which is essentially quarter 3. So students will be finalizing their grades, and then teachers will be, and counselors will be sending out those progress reports to their parents and such. This is not a transcript of any sort, rather it is a current progress check as to see the student and how they're doing academically. These progress reports are not sent to colleges unless directly requested and approved by counseling. Graduation for the class of 2022 will occur on June 10th, starting at 6 p.m. at the Memorial Field. Seniors, through email and other methods, have so far confirmed their names for diplomas, and in the coming month or so, we'll be receiving caps and gowns, which they often personalize. Expect more correspondence from Pinkerton soon. SATs and PSATs are occurring this Thursday, the 24th of March, in which freshmen, sophomores will be taking the PSAT, and juniors will be taking the SAT. I think one of the reasons that Pinkerton is now having some of our underclassmen take the PSAT at Pinkerton instead of in those other locations and environments that we've had in the past is because my class especially, the majority of us never took the PSAT prior to the SAT, so many of us were not eligible for the National Merit Scholarship and other types of awards that would make us eligible for. So they're really starting to do that with our underclassmen and prepare our students for the SAT and college and so forth. These tests will take place in a Pinkerton-issued Chromebook, as all juniors in the state of New Hampshire are required to take the SAT digitally this spring. In order to successfully prepare the students for the assessment, Pinkerton would like to advise students and parents or guardians about what to bring and what to expect on test day. They sent out some emails to students. All students listed on taking a test, whether or not, unless you specially requested to not be taking the PSAT, all juniors will be taking the SAT. Some underclassmen may not be taking the PSAT. They should have received emails several weeks ago with that information, and within the last 48 hours received emails regarding the location of that test. On the day of the test, students will arrive at school at the regular school day time of no later than 7:15 a.m. Buses will be making their normal pickup runs as if it were a regular school day. By 7:15 a.m., students must report directly to testing rooms, and each student has already received an email message that was sent to their Pinkerton email address indicating their assigned testing room. On test days, students will be eligible to send up to 4 free score reports to colleges of their choosing. They can indicate this on the day of the test. If we have any more information, that can be found on the Pinkerton Academy website or in the emails that the students received. Also on the 24th, for those of us who will not be taking the SATs and the PSATs, our seniors, there is the Senior Palooza event. This is a day that will consist of games and activities in the Hackler Fieldhouse, Manning Lecture Hall, and the Stockbridge Theater. There will be several event sponsors to meet with seniors to discuss future plans after high school, including college direction, employment, summer experiences, and a variety of other opportunities. Many of the New Hampshire industries and college majors will be represented. On the 25th and 27th, the Pinkerton Players will be presenting Pippin in the Stockbridge Theater. Starting this Saturday. Tickets are still available for both of those days. Scholarships. Seniors are in the process of receiving college decisions and applying to scholarships that interest them. Please be advised that the majority of these scholarships are due by April 1st. Pinkerton sent out several emails within the last couple of weeks regarding those scholarships and some of those lists. Access those through Naviance and visit counseling for more details. The Rotary Speech Contest will be held on April 1st from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. in the Astro Cafe Pinkerton. Students are invited to deliver any 5 to 7 minute speech of their choice as long as it passes the Rotary 5-way test. This test is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? First place is a prize of $500, second place $300, and third place $200. You can visit the Pinkerton website or scan any of the QR codes on campus or our Instagram for more details. Astrothon, Student Council's Astrothon for 2022 will be held on April 2nd through April 3rd from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. at Pinkerton Academy. The Astrothon event is described as a party with a purpose and is the culminating effort of volunteers after they've gathered sufficient funds to donate to the Every Child Fund at Boston Children's Hospital. Our school is on a mission to help kids in the local community. We are raising funds and awareness through Dance Marathon for our local Children's Miracle Network Hospital, which treats children from our area and provides critical life-saving treatments and healthcare services for our children and families. We are on track to surpass our original goal of $10,000 within the next few days. After fundraising for several months, students and teachers will celebrate their efforts with an overnight event at Pinkerton. And more information and details can be found by visiting Astrothon 2022 on Instagram or emailing studentcouncil@pinkertonacademy.org. The Spring College Fair will be held on April 6th from 6 to 8 p.m. in the Hackler Gymnasium and will host over 150 colleges, universities, trade schools, and apprenticeship programs. Students will have the opportunity to meet individually with college representatives as well as school counselors to discuss all the postgraduate possibilities. For events that have occurred prior to this meeting, Track nationals. 6 of our Pinkerton Academy track athletes qualified and competed in the prestigious national level track meets hosted by New Balance and Nike in New York City on March 11th and 13th. Luke Brennan competed at the New Balance Nationals indoor meet in the first seed of the boys championship 2-mile race. Maddie Connors competed at the New Balance Nationals indoor meet in the Rising Stars girls 200 meter event, and as well as Nike indoors. And at Nike Indoors, Matt Devine, Jacob Spezzaferi, and Alex LeBlanc, a Hampstead graduate, and Zach Smith, a Hampstead graduate, competed in the boys 1600 sprint medley relay. The boys ran a very strong race and finished in 12th place overall. Spirit and gymnastics. This past winter, the gymnastics teams placed at the Division I state champions, making the 2021-2022 season their 10th state championship title in the last 12 years. The cheer team were also Division I champions, and this past weekend, the Saturday, they became the New England champions at Worcester State. Cadet Kiesling, ROTC scholarship. Senior Cadet Rachel Kiesling has received word she's been chosen to receive a full 4-year Air Force Reserve Officer Training Corps scholarship to any of their universities. Cadet Kiesling competed against thousands of other Air Force Junior ROTC cadets from across the nation for one of only 100 of this type of scholarship, awarded specifically to top Air Force Junior ROTC cadets. Cadet Kiesling is a Hampstead Middle School graduate, and her parents live in town. Mr. Pinkerton. The Student Council hosted the annual Mr. Pinkerton show this past week and crowned Matthew Davila as Mr. Pinkerton 2022. Mr. Pinkerton is a male pageant that includes unique talents, skills, and interviews, and group dances. Recently, our Health Occupation Students of America chapter took 19 students to the annual New Hampshire HOSA Leadership Conference in Concord. We had a strong showing, and all of our students performed well, and 7 of them earned medals. Lauren Marsh, silver medal for behavioral health, Caden Higginbottom and myself for emergency medical technician, bronze, Brittany Firmez and Rachel Swanson, a gold medal in EMT, Emma Olson, a silver medal in medical spelling, and Brooke Bowles, a silver medal in research, persuasive writing, and speaking. Deca. Pinkerton's chapter of Deca also competed recently with many of our students placing. Among them, Hampstead graduate Jack McGarrahan placed 1st in food marketing and 3rd in startup business plan. Mia Ward, another Hampstead graduate, placed 2nd in 2 events, quick serve restaurant management and startup business plan. And Ella DeCesar, Hampstead graduate, placed 2nd in the buying and merchandising team with Ridge Crossman. La Cura de Marzo. Spanish and French classes have been participating in an international March Madness competition where they vote for their favorite music videos in their respective languages. Students create brackets, listen to songs, and vote, all while becoming more proficient in their language and comparing their results against results from across the country and the world. On March 14th, the World Language Honor Society hosted their inductee ceremony for all of their new inductees. It went well. And 2 Pinkerton Academy students have been recognized for the National Merit Scholarship Program for their exceptional academic promise. Jude Farley of Derry and Diego Rubio of Chester have been named finalists and will now be considered for some 7,500 National Merit Scholarships worth nearly $30 million that will be offered next spring. About half of the finalists will be awarded scholarships from the National Merit Scholarship Program. Thank you.
Wow. Really good. Thank you. For your first time, you might as well take my seat because you're pretty.
What's the liaison? It's nice to see you again and to work with you again. I just learned more about Pinkerton than I've known for months, so I appreciate it. Well, I have a kid there, I should know, but I don't.
I have a question, Jack, on the cheerleading that they just won the state championship. Yeah. I had heard, and I don't know if this is true, so fact or fiction, that this was the 18th year in a row that they've won?
It has been many years. Unfortunately, they also did New England Championship this past weekend. I'm not currently on the cheer team, so I'm not entirely sure about those statistics, but I'm certain I could refer you to some people at Pinkerton who could answer that question for you.
That was my next question, fact or fiction, if you were on that, but no, I appreciate that.
No, unfortunately not.
No, there's a lot of impressive things going on at Pinkerton, and I think that's why a lot of families and parents are impressed at what they offer. I mean, think about what you just named off. I don't know, probably about 24 different things different activities, different just what events, anything that, anybody can pick from.
Yeah, and these were mostly in the past 2 weeks. So I certainly missed a whole bunch of stuff that we've been doing this year. And Pinkerton, we've been very happy this year to actually be hosting events, because it was, we have the capacity to host people. We have the capacity to host state events. We have the capacity to hold national conferences here. And it's really been a pleasure for all of our student organizations at NHS, the Student Council, to be hosting these types of events and be participating in conferences and having our students travel and go places to showcase the skills they learn, their knowledge, and their experience to really enjoy their time in high school and have time to have fun. So it's been really a pleasure, and it's been a gift these past couple of months to see that coming full to action, whereas we were missing that for the past couple of years.
Yeah, and maybe this is more of a question for Mrs. Denola and Mr. Thompson, but as 8th graders are moving up, is there the opportunity, or is there things put in place of students, maybe seniors, to speak to parents or 8th graders about what to expect, what's out there? Is there anything like that we haven't tapped into in the past that might be something, if not for our friend Jack here, or just in general, something more? Because I know I'll be a parent next year, have a child going up to Pinkerton. It'd be really nice to know, if I want to get my child involved more and what's out there. Do we do anything like that, Mrs. Denola, where we get, and I'll give you time, I'll spread my words out a little bit slower, but that we bring maybe seniors back or any students back to talk to parents in 8th graders?
Do you remember when you were in 8th grade?
I could talk about this if you'd like me to talk about this. So Hampstead tends to do stuff as well, but Pinkerton also has a lot of, I know we talk about course night, cap night, CTE night. In particular, that majority of the time that those are students from our sending schools coming to Pinkerton and having our student representatives talk with them, and depending on what types of programs they're in, what types of courses they've been in. So myself, I'm an EMT, and I did the health science technology program at Pinkerton. So I've been able to, with some of our events that we've hosted, I know we had some good Hampstead showing at the CTE night earlier this year, is you're able to talk to those kids and give them an expectation of what they should be looking like for Pinkerton. In the past, we've had students come here. I don't know what our protocol will be for this year. That's more for them to answer. But we do have a multitude of events throughout course selection process, students transitioning into the school, and there's a freshman field day in the middle of the summer that the student council puts on. So we host a variety of games. We have them take their ID pictures. We talk about sports teams. We talk about programs. We talk about tracks. We give them their emails. We show them how to write an email, a proper email. So there's a lot of stuff that Pinkerton itself does when the students are there on campus. The sending towns, it tends to vary, and that's not a question that I can particularly answer at this point.
All right, thank you for that overview, Jack.
Thank you, Jack. And what we did in the past is that we would have alumni come back and come to talk to the 8th graders about a day in the life of an Astro. And Mr. Mayu did a really nice job of hand selecting certain students to come and speak to our 8th graders. So that's something I definitely will bring about conversation with Mr. Mayu. He does a really nice job with transitions. He meets with the parents, and we take visits over there, and we keep that Pinkerton schoolhouse on our website that all the 8th grade parents can keep going to for any updated information. But now that things are starting to open up again, it would be lovely to welcome our alumni back in, because there's nothing like hearing it from the students themselves.
Right.
So I'll put that on my honey-do list.
Well, they do also offer what might sound like
He shadowed my daughter today.
Yeah.
It was pretty great. He loved it. It gave him sort of even confidence about going, and he felt comfortable. And so I think I posted for 8th grade parents who to contact if they wanted to do that.
Great news. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, Jack, very much for that update. We're looking forward to the next one. All right. Now I can get in current business and talk about elections results and other information. So go over all the results here. As we all know, Dr. Carl Hubner has joined us for the one-year term. And then I've been reelected for the 3-year term. We failed to get the 3/5 majority vote on the Central School Addition project. We did pass our operating budget substantially, and then also the Capital Reserve Fund. So thank you to the community of Hampstead for passing both the operating budget and our Capital Reserve Fund. We've also passed the lot line adjustment for the neighbors to the Central School, and of course the general acceptance of the reports, which typically passes pretty well. So that's the results from the vote. I know we're going to get right into the addition next, but if there's anything else anybody wants to speak to on the results besides the addition? All right, so we're going to move right into the addition discussion. But before the board members, before we get into that, we do have a member of the community that we're going to welcome in a moment to talk about a survey that he put out to the community. But in this discussion coming up, we want to talk about not only, if we want to talk about how we feel about the results, but we also want to start talking about what did we learn from this past year, and then start talking about what are we looking to do. And the difference between last year when we were facing separation of the SAU, standing up a new administration, COVID, and a lot of other challenges, the difference between last year or even the year before to this year is, the expectation is that we are going to get after this immediately. We're not going to wait until the fall. We are going to be putting actions in place. So there's a lot of discussion that's going to happen. I do expect this discussion to go on for quite a bit. So I'd say sit back, fasten your fun belts. We will have a lot of lively discussion amongst us. But first, like I said, we really appreciate Matt Gillette is going to be joining us in just a second here. I'll present what he has sent us based on his survey results. I don't want to take away any of his thunder. I just want to say thank you to Matt and especially the community members that have taken part in this survey. It wasn't just a yes-no survey. There was a lot of questions to try to get some information. It would be something that I probably would have asked the board, how do we do this? But Matt's done this for us. And so without further ado, Matt Gillette. And there we go.
Thank
so
you.
Just tell me when you want me to move on, and I'll go through the presentation.
Thank you, Dave. For those of you who don't know me, Matt Gillette. And for those of you who don't know, we do have 2 kind of quote-unquote primary Facebook groups that do exist for the community, run by community members. And they can be vibrant, and they are vibrant. And I think the second day after the election, I wanted to see what I could do about, obviously we saw the results of the yes-no, the 3/5 didn't pass accordingly. And I kind of wanted to know, to find out if I could find out, to see if I could find out why it didn't pass. So as you can see up, there is a slideshow behind you, board members. It's from a strict numbers perspective. We had, I think, 7 questions overall. Some of them were in the Likert scale, the strongly disagree up to strongly agree. And we had some 2 of them which were open-ended to describe a little bit more about a couple of the questions. And then we had the opportunity at the end for people to kind of do a catch-all, if you could tell me more information, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just going to quickly go through the questions and just offer a little bit of my own feedback about the results. So the first question we wanted to find out was, did you vote in favor of Article 2 for the responses? And we had 334 total responses to the survey, and we had 78% of the people responded yes, and the 22% responded no. So while I'm not like an expert in research methodology, survey creation, the survey wasn't even supposed to be that scientific or formal. It was just, again, something I wanted to just put out there and see who would respond and what kind of information we could get. I thought it was really interesting, this first response. So, obviously we had a 78% of the responders said they voted yes versus no to pass Article 2. And I think the overall results for the official town vote was a 51% yes to a 49% no. So the reason this is interesting to me is because I'm not going to speak for anybody from my perception. The school board and a lot of the community members put a pretty good effort into spreading information on our Facebook community groups. And what I kind of am wondering, as David said, we're gonna start next year's plan, pretty immediately. The amount of effort that was given towards the Facebook groups, getting the word out, the charts and graphs and info sheets and so on. I'm wondering how effective that is going to be in the future, because we are kind of missing, inherently, we're kind of missing a cohort of people who may not have social media accounts, don't participate in social media, and that's just not who's involved in the Facebook groups. What I'm wondering is if those groups are echo chambers of supporters of the school, judging by the number that you see up there. I also wonder, if there was just a fault in the survey itself, how people didn't want to deal with any more school-related things after the election was already over. And then kind of piggybacking off the echo chamber comment, the Facebook communities themselves don't include enough residents to capture both sides of the argument. Again, to see the kind of vast difference between the percentages here, just whether or not they wanted to answer if they voted yes or no versus the actual, vote itself. It stuck out to me, we'll put it that way. So the next few slides, I'm going to go through them a little bit quicker, but they were the ones, a couple of the Likert scale ones you'll see, and then we're going to get into kind of a grid about a specific thing. So again, we had the March 8th town vote. We had 334 respondents to the survey of 2,246 actual people who voted in the town election itself. So about 15%, potentially 15% of the voter pool. You can, next slide. So the next question, again, I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. Many of you have maybe even seen the survey and participated in it. A couple of the questions I wanted to kind of gauge whether I thought the people were actually paying attention to the information that was out there. And you'll see that in a couple of the later questions. But first and foremost, I wanted to find out what people thought about whether or not they actually believed that there are renovations that need to be made. An interesting thing was that the people who did vote no on the first question that we went over, so the no voters, they did lean slightly towards agreeing that renovations are needed. And I think we're going to find out a couple, or hear about a couple of reasons in a second, of even though they voted no for the article, but they still, believe that there are renovations. How does that square up overall? Next slide. One of the big kind of information pieces that I saw being pushed out was the fact about, could potentially run out of space here with the growing population. And it was interesting to me to see, according to the Likert scale here, the people who voted yes, that they did vote for Article 2, they responded that they overwhelmingly agree with the statement that the school is going to run out of space. And then, the people who voted no, it seems to be, a big belief that they don't believe the school is going to run out of space. So that's just a reason, that I'm kind of underlining why people voted no. Kind of another theme, which is not a surprise. People don't want to pay for the renovations. Kind of the monetary theme throughout this is going to be obvious to you all. That the tax burden itself was a big thing that people had to swallow, including all of us that live here. I actually thought this was going to go a little bit one way versus the other, but for the no votes especially, the no votes, they pretty well disagreed with the statement. So, next slide. And like I said, in keeping with the monetary theme, the people who voted no were pretty in strong agreement about their financial situation not allowing for a tax increase. So that's something that the board is probably going to have to think about, is thinking about going forward, about how we can kind of counter this concern that people do have. And so one of the questions, not the Likert scale, it was just a grid of different pieces of the proposal for the renovation. They had 3 options: a yes, no, and a not sure. Of the total votes, you can obviously see the numbers there. Things that stuck out were the yes voters really believed in the special education space for number 3, and then the sprinkler system upgrade for number 8. And again, this information is just so you guys can see how the community is feeling about some of the different parts of the renovation proposal on the whole. I did break it down, or it was broken down a bit into the people who, so the yes voters, the voters that were in favor of Article 2, and how they responded to the different pieces. Next slide. And then also the people who voted against Article 2. You can kind of see some of the things out of the 76, I think it was, 76 people total who voted no, and how they felt about some of the pieces as well. So overall, there were, like I said, there were a bunch of open-ended responses. I think we got about 75 people who responded or so with open text responses. I do want to formally say that I want to offer this data to the school board, so you all can take it and kind of chew on it, if you will, a little bit, and I can certainly pass that along to you. And like I said, this wasn't science, very scientific. It was barely even formal. I just stuck it up on the Facebook group for a couple weeks just to see what we'd get. Hopefully there is some information that is worthwhile, and yeah, that's about it.
All right. Thank you, Matt, for doing this.
Yep.
Good information.
Thanks.
Typically, we don't allow the questions during. It's usually public comments. But board members, it's up to us if we want to make an exception. I'm fine with it.
Fine with it.
Fine? Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Please. You want to step up to the mic, and if you want to announce who.
No, just as you were speaking, Matt, it just prompted my memory, and so I don't have the facts in front of me, but maybe you guys can answer the question. So I don't know if it was last year or the year before where number 2 was broken into, number 4 for the 60s wing renovation and number 2 for, just, I guess it was like modified. And was it what year was it? Was it last year or the year before? Number 4. Was passed.
Was last
The 60s wing, okay.
So, yes, it was
So I thought it was an interesting observation because I feel like it just highlights a problem that, kind of what I've heard is maybe a bit of a wound in the town. In regards to, when I looked at the numbers, so 30% of people, no, a third of the people that turned out to vote voted no for number 4. And number 4 was no tax increase. Number 4 was the 60s wing renovations, which we know were negatively impacting, the kids in many ways. And so it's like, whoa, what were some of the reasons of why in the world would people vote no for number 4? And I just think that's an interesting thing because then I'm guessing it's safe to assume that third of the percentage then voted for number 2 on that same ballot. But then, because I think just what Matt had said, you know, are people paying attention to the information out there? You know, like what could be some variables of why people voted number 2? It's like, oh, it's something to do with the school, I'm just going to vote no. You know, was it actually aware that that's come out of, you know, the Capital Reserve Fund? Were they aware, like, how this is negatively impacting, like, the, you know, the kids' ability, or, you know, I guess environment for conducive learning? And so I just wonder if, like, you know, because we know that number 2 has been years and years to pass. That's why I even was motivated to create one of the Facebook groups in 2016 when it, you know, got to the news of, like, what is going on in this town? Why is there this pushback? And I was curious what were some of the, you know, humbly curious, and I've had some very, you know, helpful conversations, which I know a lot of people don't like to share publicly, so I've had some private conversations, and I think it comes down to the wound of, you know, are people believing that the information is true, or is the school board asking for too much? And I only say that because of it sounds like there's a history in the town, not I'm saying this current. And so I just wonder what are some solutions around that of like rebuilding like trust that, you know, like just that great breakdown of what Matt did of like all the things that are needed. Well, how are people, in my opinion, because if I was to vote, I'd be like, a lot of them I'm unsure about. Like, could there be some collection of data of like photos of each of those things and why it's felt that it's needed? What are more urgency? What are things that can wait? I mean, you know, people are voting no for an upgrade in the sprinkler system. Well, of course, I kind of feel like, how can they be educated? How can they be informed? And kind of like everything on that list. And I wonder if that could be helpful. So it's like, so people are making a bit more of an informed decision, and maybe, I don't know what that looks like, if it looks like videos or photos of like a breakdown of all those examples, so that then if it's, you know, but once again, people could still, maybe a third of the people that are turning out are still possibly going to automatically vote no. So then, I don't know the solution. How do we get more people to turn out? How do we, to, you know, since the supermajority is needed. So anyway.
Thank you, Dan. That's all right.
Excuse me.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Matt.
Chairman Smith?
Yes.
May we get her name for the record, please?
Yes. Do you mind speaking up in the microphone? Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's Diana Abirad. That's Abiraad.
Thank you.
All right. So at this point, going to open up to the board members. Really, you know, the goal of this is to talk about where we want to go from this point. We know that we as a community, not even we as a school board, but we as a community have not moved forward with this plan since 2014. We know that there's been a few different iterations of the plans. There's been, you know, the hope and the thought of moving forward with more information, and that, you know, the plan that's there makes sense. But, you know, I think my opinion is that now we're at the point of 8 years, and had this been done differently even in the last couple of years, never mind 8 years ago, we could have got more done. But I don't want to lead the witness too much yet. I don't give my opinion too much yet, but I'd like just to open this up to board members where your thoughts are right now. So I'll start to my left, and I think we should all, you know, have some input to this. So I'll start with Jason.
We saw a lot of good points on Matt's survey, and Matt greatly appreciate the effort. The town understands that we have needs in certain aspects of the school. It was clear on why they voted yes. Even the no votes kind of summarized the same theme of we needed safety, we needed special services, we needed certain things. It seemed like the yes votes and the no votes aligned with the reasons why they would vote for it or why we need to do something. It, to me, overwhelmingly comes down to the finances and funding this. I have my thoughts on different ways that we can move forward, some ideas that maybe it stems from, you know, it's time to maybe look at this differently. It's time to raise a different opportunity versus just putting the same plan on the ballot and expecting different results. You know, it's the same plan. If we didn't communicate it well this year, we've communicated it for 9 to 10 years. You know, we've communicated it for a long time. Even the year we took off, we still communicated it. So maybe it's time to, you know, challenge the team and see if we can propose a different plan, maybe something that focuses on what the town is looking for us to accomplish, and at the same time maybe reducing the scope and possibly reducing the price tag to it. You know, I'm at a point now where I feel like the best thing that we can do is break it up, personally.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page as what Jay was saying, on the idea that breaking it up and getting wins over time, because we keep getting 50%, so we can get a smaller bond or a 2-year bond, or put stuff away in the capital reserve to eventually build up for a bigger project. But just the idea of, you know, getting down the road and getting on that course of action. I would like to try to look at long-term planning and look at what the negative results are going to be if we aren't able to pass this. How much more is it going to cost the district in the long term? Because again, once you run into space issues, it's going to be prohibitively more expensive to send students out of district, and then it also becomes an unfair issue with which students are going out of district, which can open us to legal ramifications. So I definitely want to, when we make the case, you know, we need this, it's because it's going to save people money in the long run. And I think if we do get small bites at the apple over the course of, say, the next 10 years, even if we do small additions, we'll eventually get to where the central school needs to be. Thank you.
Megan?
Yeah, excuse me. So I understand the idea of, excuse me, of breaking this out into smaller projects. What I'd like to see is, or of course we need to work with Gino on that, what makes sense, because in my mind, I'm just thinking of, okay, we're gonna work on this area of the building, and then in a couple of years, we're gonna tear down this wall that we just built to do another project. So I just like to understand from Gino's perspective how he thinks we could make this make the most financial sense as possible. I don't know how that looks. The other thing is working with Jeff Mackey to see if we can come up with a plan. What can we fit into the general operating budget? Small projects here and there. Yeah.
Okay. Aaron?
So yeah, I don't think that we can go back to the taxpayers with like another $12 million bond. So I agree that we might need to consider doing in pieces by priority. So I would say, given what we just saw, the priorities are space, special education, and security. But my concern on that is if we do it in pieces, is it going to come across as though everything's fixed and, you know, then the other things don't get fixed, right? So I have a concern with that. You know, I think we need to get more information out all year long as opposed to really, you know, the month or two before. And I think it needs to be more informational. I think there was a lot of things I saw that were like, oh, I didn't know that they needed sprinklers. I didn't know that they needed this or that. And it was kind of after the fact. And I mean, we're immersed in it, so we know it. But clearly not everybody's getting that. So how do we get that out there? You know, I think that stuff we can do all year. And, you know, that doesn't necessarily talk about tax impact or anything like that. It just talks about need, just to get the information there. I guess one of the other things, you know, we returned $1.7 million to the town. If we have a surplus like that again, or can we put some of that into capital reserve and try to build that back up? So just a few thoughts.
Okay. So I'd say from my standpoint, agreed. I think breaking it up needs to be the number one priority for us. I think breaking it up to what makes sense, SEN, SE, as well as CENTS, because I agree with you, Megan, that, it's kind of hard to think about, if I was to do this in my house, knowing that, hey, this year I'm building up this wall, but next year I'm going to take down a wall, and I'm spending money on that. But I think also that the voters have, clearly stated they understand that, and it's a big price tag up front. So doing it in the most feasible way, efficient way, will make sense. I think that you're spot on, and I think we all agree with you, Aaron, about getting the information out year-round. As an example, I, like everybody here, probably spent a lot of hours and days thinking about this. In February, we send out one postcard from the school board, and we spend about $2,000 per year on this. Well, what if we broke that up throughout the year? And we know that in like the Care Challenge, as an example, we can get an insert in there for $500. Well, we can get that message out 4 times a year. Or we can do better jobs of writing ourselves 2 different papers, or soliciting reporters to come in and see things as they happen throughout the year. So I think communications is a huge piece of this, because back to what Mr. Gillette was saying about who knows on Facebook who is and who isn't. We can theorize who is or who isn't, but when we see a survey that says 80% of the people that took part in it say yes, well, we know that isn't reflective on the town. I do believe also knowing what our capital reserve will be come June, because right now we have about 300,000 in there, and then the voters, the community voted in another 500,000 if we have that. So at the end of this year, we could have $800,000. Well, that goes again. That can pay for something, even if it's one of the smaller pieces of what we put out there, be it the bathroom on the 2nd floor so the kids aren't standing in line like a Patriots game, right? Or it's a down payment on the 2 classrooms. You know what I mean? Like use some of the operating budget, some of the capital reserve for the 2 Cove classrooms. That helps towards what the ultimate goal is. I think we also saw in the survey, even though it's not, it's 15% of the voters, but still you saw the yes and the no's, they're top 3. And I think, Jason, you had just said it. It was special education, sprinkler systems, and I forget what the third one is, security. So those 3 things, and there was a little sprinkle of a few other places, student services, et cetera. So if we can come up with what we think our priority is, and I know we've talked individually about this, and give direction to say, okay, here's what we want in the plan this year. How do we do that? Versus what do we say, okay, and it goes back to what we were just saying. What's our 3-year, 5-year, 10-year plan for some of these additional things that we say are not, maybe not priority, or it's more of a, what's the priority versus what's the subsequent year's plan for the central school. So I don't know if you want to talk anything more about that. But my other thing is, how do we make the message, I'd say, simpler and to the point, so that it's something that can resonate with the community of what we're looking for? We hear, just think about that. If we heard sprinklers, special education, and student space, that's all it is. It's those 3 things. Is that the priority? Well, then that's what we hit home on. That's what, we focus on, and that's our priority for this. But that's where my head is at right now, besides, a lot more things we should be doing throughout the year. Bringing in more members. How do we bring more members into the central school throughout the year, not just in February? So how do we bring in more community members? How do we bring in some of those, like the committees or the activities so that people can see this? I know that there's some things we'll talk about tonight about Homeland Security audits. So there's some things we need to highlight more and sooner and sprinkle those messages throughout the year instead of, putting it all in February. I got a laundry list of things. I'm not going to name off everything.
One thing, Dave, if it's all right. Yeah. One thing I don't want to get lost in the shuffle is that everything that was proposed on this plan is a need. If we break this up and we prioritize things, it doesn't mean it's because we don't need the things that we're putting on the back burner. Those items in those areas are still a need. It's just that whatever we break off the first time around is going to be the priority.
Right.
So I just want to make sure that we maintain that message out there, that everything on the proposal is a need and not a want.
Right.
I agree with what Jay is saying. I was going to say the same thing, because I think it's important for people to understand that if we do things in pieces, it's not because the plan wasn't right. It's because we're trying to get it done, and we have to do it some way. I do know that in the past there has been mistrust and people didn't trust the plan or whatever. This plan is need, it's not want. So, like Jay said, if we do it this way, it's because we're just trying to make sure we can get the kids the school they need.
I think, no, no, not right now. Okay, sorry. But with the board talking right now about this, so.
And what I would say too is we can take the big plan and we can break it up and say, we're going to do this 2-year section and this 2-year section and this 2-year section. And honestly, if we pass the first 2-year section, we pass the next one, eventually people are just going to be like, we might as well just bond it out to save money, because again, the more wins we get, the more people are going to understand that like people value education in the town, and it's worth just investing it in the short term to save money in the long term, which I think would be helpful. But yeah, and I mean, I think they should be able to, like you were saying, Megan, if they look at it, we're going to do this over 6 years, right? That they could, like the construction on the current construction is basically built to put in those 2 new classrooms in the central school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just there's like the little cove.
Yep.
Yeah, it's set up so that they can take them off and put the stuff up.
Yep.
So yeah, if we give them the instruction, I would assume that the construction company can look at that. Instead of doing it over 2 years, they can do it over 6. But I don't know if
I
that's
do still have the concern that people will think that it's done and that it's not needed, like we don't need whatever it is that we don't do. So I think we just have to make sure that that's clear.
Yeah, and I think that's where, we build up, again, every year, we've increased the capital reserve request every year for the last 3 years. When I first got on the board, I think it was 100 or 150,000. And then we built that up to, I want to say it was 350,000, and then now 500,000. And if you look at the results, I'd say overwhelmingly approving that. So if in 3 years we build it up more, right? Let's say whatever that number is, well, we can get after something like in a cafeteria or like a music room with those funds that we build up. So that's part of what I would say is the communication of our plan, is not just here's what we want to do for next year, but also in 4 years, we're going to come and say, here's the cafeteria. In 5 years, because we know, I'm just going to make up, the music room's $1 million, so we know we can do that either in our operating budget, or we can put it on its own and only need a 50%, or something. So what I'd like to hear from the board tonight is, what do we want in the plan? And we agree on that tonight for what we want to be, we start to plan out for next March vote. And then anything that's not, the other action for us as a board is to start layering in, well, when do we think that is? So then we say, here's our 1-year plan. That's what the warrant. Well, when do we think this thing, X, is going to be? That's going to be in 3 years. Well, we start planning that appropriately, because we can find out what's the approximate cost. Throw in some inflation and say, okay, well, they say it's $1 million. In 4 years, 3 years, it's going to be $1.3 million. So we need to come up with $1.3 million in 3 years. And to your point, Aaron, if we get money back from the state, we have some sort of other funds besides capital, we can start putting that into that. And by that time, we'll be smarter too about maybe there's additional grants out there that we don't have right now. Whatever that looks like, but we get after that plan for a 3-year plan. And then our 5th-year plan is whatever we don't have that we didn't get in 3 years, well, what's that next thing? And we build towards that. Because I really don't want to hear in 8 years, we're still doing the same thing. We've been doing this for 8 years. I think a lot of us, over 50% of us wish that it passed. It didn't. And that's year after year. I think there's only 1 year or 2 years that we didn't get 50%. So we're constantly getting that 51 to 56%. And then I think that there's a lot we can do throughout the year that we haven't. And again, this is the first year we don't have all of the other, I can call it baggage, that we've had over the last 3 years. We have a stable board now. We have stable administration. We have a lot going towards this momentum that we can have put a lot of this action in place. That throughout the year, board members can go to an event and just hand out that pamphlet, that simple pamphlet that says sprinklers, special ed, student space, and answer questions, be it at a concert night down in the summer, whatever that looks like. You know, we have 5 strong board members that can be doing that, and we have a very healthy, strong administration that can help out also, that has already shown that they're willing to get out there. So I think we have a lot going for us if we're smart about the plan this year.
And I think one positive is, so the fire station was 1.55 million. We can, if we pass something that's 1.55 million, taxes won't, in theory, go up that year.
It replaces that capital.
Yeah, it replaces that cap. So in theory, I think that's kind of a starting point, is what do we get? In 2 years, what do we get for, you know, a little over $3 million?
Yep.
And then, you know, there's obviously some wiggle room to go beyond that, but I think that's a good ballpark to look at.
Yep. So I think at this point, unless there's any other feelings, I'd like to get into details of what board members want. I think that is their priority, is so we can start to, I'd say we're going to negotiate, compromise, whatever that looks like, to say what do we want, because I think we need to get after this quickly and give direction to Mr. Dowd and Mr. Thompson so that we can start to work towards this, because for the public, we also have a time clock right now, which is the school, or the Department of Education has a building aid fund that we need to provide our plans. And it's not just like, hey, we're going to go after this kind of stuff. And no, we got to give detailed plans of what that looks like to the DOE. And with the, I'd say, if anybody's ever done state paperwork, it's a lot of information that needs to be there. It's probably triplicate, 50 pages. So we got to get after this plan quickly, because we need to, one, get whatever that drawing looks like, that design looks like, right? Whether it's what's existing, whether it's something in the past or something new, whatever that looks like, because we want to go after this cost efficiently. And we want to be able to give the administration enough time to wrap all this in a bow so we can go after that state reimbursement and work with our state senator, our state house reps, to see what we can do to influence the decision for Hampstead to get that money. So that's why I'm pressing, and I think it's very important that we come to an agreement. And I'm also saying it because we've all been around Hampstead long enough to know, what can and cannot happen, what should or should not happen, and we've all been talking to a lot of people about their feelings about what should or shouldn't be in this. And it's not about what we think is not ultimately needs to be in the central school, but what do we think as a board will pass next year so we can get after that strategically. So whoever wants to go up first of either what needs to be in there or what you think can wait for a future part of the plan.
Could you please put the screen up? So I would start by saying special education and security are the top of mind for me.
So what we're looking at, again, what the survey of about 15% of voters, this is, again, overwhelmingly the yes voters participated in this, but we did get about 20%, 22% of the no voters. I just want to speak to this real quick, Megan, if you don't mind. This speaks to me, of course, what is overall of those 335 respondents. What I was really interested in is these are the voters that voted no on Article 2. So if we look at the people that voted no, you see where they favored more about what should be in something of a plan. And I'm looking at the yes versus no. The not sures are interesting, means there's more information we can get out there. But if you look at it, sprinkler systems at 38, special education space at 37 are the two leaders here. Additional bathrooms is 25. And then following that, we get the library media room. So that's really top 4 for the no voters. For the yes voters, it looks similar, right? Sprinklers and special ed special ed's number 1, sprinklers number 2. Quickly scanning, libraries number 3, and additional bathrooms number 4. So, and I think that when I look at, the only thing I would say what stands out to me is where student services space, sometimes that, get lost in translation of people of what does that exactly mean. So I actually carry that up there. It was pretty important because I think that what I also saw was in the survey results was this answer right here. Concerned the school is going to run out of space. I think that's something we have to do a better messaging of what that means. Because I think that if people aren't concerned that we run out of space for like special ed or that we've taken away the library, I think this is where the opportunity to get the message out better will serve us. about, hey, did you know we've pretty much lost the library? Hey, did you know that we've lost the computer room? Hey, did you know that we're now looking at moving preschool off-site, or we can't offer kindergarten to everybody that wants it for full day? These kind of messages, I think, can spread out throughout the year to increase that message. So, but sorry, sorry to interrupt, Megan, but is there anything particular you wanted to point out?
Oh, no, I mean, I think we went down the row and I think we called out the three. And it's, what we're thinking is pretty much in line with what the survey results were showing as being top of mind for both the yes votes and the no votes.
I think we need to see what this would look like, right? So what does it look like as far as we have this plan. If we want to do it in pieces, how does that work, right? So do we go to Trident or whoever and say, this is our plan. How can we make these additions within this plan so that eventually our building will be this, right? I don't know what that looks like or how they do that. Yep. So I think that is a step we need to take and see what we're looking at cost-wise.
I'll ask, just bounce off that for Mr. Thompson, Mr. Dowd. I think that what we're asking is, if we were to say, hey, here are these pieces of the project we want now, price that out, but then have that in mind for them to say, to also say, these other pieces that are not are something that we're going to put in. I'm going to call it a 5-year plan, whatever that looks like, right? But just knowing that we are eventually going to go after those in some form or fashion, I think that's all we really want to do. And do you think, how do you think that's going to be received by Trident as far as will they be able to turn something around quickly for us in both design and or cost?
So we're dealing with two different vendors. One is an architect on design, well, 3 if you include our project manager. And then once that design is complete, then that goes to our general contractor to get ballpark pricing on it. Mm-hmm. So really it's a multi-phased approach. We don't have a lot of time. However, I think that it would be possible to put together and get something for the immediate term, right? So that we have something for the 6/30 filing. And then to be able to have a phased approach on the rest. So we don't want to interfere with the next project, the next phase, right? We don't want to have to do too much more work as to what that next piece is going to look like. And I'm sure they could do some pricing on that. But I think in the immediate near term, it's really important for me, for us to be able to get something, a number, a plan, design at least, that'll address some needs so that we can have that design complete. And remember, architects aren't, there are quite a few projects going on. So I want to make sure that we have enough time to get them time they need to do a design and then to get a rough cost estimate, ballpark.
So some of that work's already done though, correct? Because, basically what they're doing is they're segmenting up the previous project and then looking at, if they were doing it like this, a sellable thing to me would be safety, security, and special ed, right? So one of the ways we get special ed is we move the main office. If you move the main office, you get the security at the front. And then for safety, you do the sprinklers. That's a biteable piece. Or say do the 2 alcove classrooms and do the bathrooms. I feel like that's a biteable piece. And then the CAF and then the media center. To me, I think that's probably 4 pieces. In my head, I guess in my head, I'm kind of thinking around 4 pieces because, again, if you're looking at $12 million and you split it up to $3 million apiece, the voters have shown for the fire station that they're willing to go for $3 million, basically $1.5 million a year, so $3 million over 2 years. They feel comfortable with looking at, but I don't know if that's what we need to prioritize. But
well, I think another piece we didn't talk about, I'm glad you brought up the $3 million, is something that Mr. Thompson and Mr. Dowd and I talked about, which is for the building aid reimbursement, you have to hit the $5 million threshold. Okay. So I think that our due diligence as financial stewards is to say, okay, are we going to go after $3 million, or are we going to go after something bare minimum, at the minimum $5 million, because we could get, a few $1 million back. I think it's up to 30% if we're selected. So if you think about that, 30%, that's $2 million back. So do we go after $3 million in not reimbursement, or $5 million, cross our fingers, do a lot of great paperwork, do a lot of great negotiating discussions with House of Reps, state senators, on what we can do to get in that pool, I think it behooves us as better financial stewards to go after that at a minimum $5 million.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because effectively you're getting $5 million worth of building for $3 million.
Correct. That's our hope, right? And I think that is something that's part of the message also of why it's $5 million and not 2.5, not 3, not 3.5, not 4, but minimum 5.
Yeah.
And for every dollar over that, you get 30 cents back.
Yeah.
If we're selected. I mean, it's still an if. There's a lot to do, but the good thing is the state has removed the moratorium and now is now awarding money to schools. There's quite a bit of backlog, but the first thing is you got to pass the vote. First thing you got to submit, and second you got to pass the vote. So, I don't know, anything else as far as what you'd want to see in or not part of this plan? I want to get into some details of this because we need to get this tonight. We need to talk about this so we can start giving direction.
No, I want to echo what Megan was saying. Safety and security, we need to make sure that we're keeping our schools safe. On both the yes votes and the no votes on this survey, the main office being moved was one of the, if not the lowest yes. But I think we didn't give out the information the way we needed to because that office move, creates security for our students while they're in school. So even though that piece had the least amount of yeses, it's one of the big pieces when it comes to safety and security of our students while they're at school. So the safety piece, the security piece, and then services as a whole, having the library space, having the media center. If we can create a new space for that library and open up 2 classrooms because of the library being moved, or if we can build, if it's similar to the plan that we have now where we have a library with 2 classrooms above it, we're gaining 3 classrooms, So to me, the priorities at this point in time would be safety, which includes sprinklers, which includes the front office, the library, and then a couple classrooms that come along with adding that library in there to give us more space.
Yeah. I think you're spot on with, I think the messaging of, if we decide that it's the moving of the main office is what's at the main office right now where they currently sit would be turned into special education space. So it's gaining space to provide that special education that we, right now either has in closets or we're sending to other districts because we don't have the space. I think that's a major feature. You're getting a 2-for-1 essentially.
Right, and I don't want it to be seen as we're giving the administrators this nice new, brand new cushy office, which they probably deserve. This move is mainly for security for the kids so that we have supervision when people are entering the building. So it's an adult seeing them for the first time and our kids aren't potentially in harm's way.
Okay. What else?
So,
yeah.
So we can make a priority list and say, keep going down this priority list until you hit 5 million, right? And then that'll give us does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I think that if we think in our mind with, I'd say first what we should be saying is, what do we think has to be in this year, right? And we allow the pricing to come back to say, is that the price that we're comfortable once we know? It's hard to say, let's hit the 5 million. It's more like, okay, out of everything that was in the plan this past year, what are the things that we want to say that this is the minimum based on, this is good information. We've also had discussions. We had a number of discussions Election Day. We've had a number of discussions since. So I think it's also just saying what out of these items, and maybe it's easier to say, what do we think is not the priority versus what is? Maybe that's the way to do it. So I'll just jump in. What's not the priority for me, for what we say we are going to do in 2 years or 3 years, 4 years, whatever we decide as a plan at maybe the next school board meeting, we allocate what that plan starts to look like is cafeteria, music room, and the bathrooms by the music room. Those are the 3 things I think we look to say, how do we do those in the future years? I also think that the 2 classrooms in the alcove, that's probably a priority that we can get after with capital reserve and or operating budget. So then for me, that leaves us with, and I know that I'm not only speaking for me, I know we've talked individually, I just want to culminate the discussions we've had, which is the library. By doing something for the library, we gain those 2 classrooms permanently. So library, 2 classrooms there. Main office, we get the special education. And then I think we need another 2 classrooms. So if we think about the current plan, right, that means that library that's off to the south side and the 2 classrooms above it is what's priority for me. That means we gain those 2 classrooms that are where the library is right now. And then again, moving that main office down means we gain substantial amount of space for special education. And I think for that piece of it, I want to check with Mr. Thompson, Mr. Dowd. Does moving the main office give us enough room for our special education teachers and students that need that extra help, IEPs and more? And is that substantial enough to support where we are now and what we foresee in the next 5 to 10 years with what we've got for the forecast for NASDAQ?
Yeah, I think, if we were to move the main office to a new look for the purposes of safety, that frees up the main office, plug it in there. And what that really does is that will create better space. It will free up an actual classroom that we're using on the top floor. Long term, it doesn't solve a number of the issues that we have with student services. Again, I'll go back to, we need to do further program development in special education to keep, students in district. It certainly helps and move in the right direction. But again, if we're going to create short-term and long-term priorities, the short-term priority would be to move special education programming to what is currently the main office.
And I think that, the other part of it's really it wasn't my idea coming out, but the 2 classrooms in the Cove, if we also get those in the next, I'm going to say in the next 2 years, right? If we don't go next year, I'm hoping that we have enough in capital reserve to go after it the following year. So in the next 2 years, if we also go after those 2 classrooms, does that better serve? Not only, I'd say also going into kindergarten, talk about kindergarten, that we can't get full day yet. Does that better serve us?
Yeah, I think it does. And again, I appreciate looking at the survey results, and I appreciate the comments that I hear from board members. I can tell you my assessment, my 3 priorities would be, number 1, the safety and security of the children within the building. Number 2 would be special education program, even if we can't achieve long-term objectives, get short-term. And then also the library media space. Those would be my 3 priorities that I would encourage the board to take a look at.
So, where's the board at? Where's our minds right now?
Sounds like we're all on the same page.
Okay. So let me see if I can summarize kind of what some of the things. So again, safety, security, and space. Those are our top 3 things. Are we all aligned on, I'll say what won't be in what we give direction. Let's start there. Are we all in alignment at the CAF, the music room, and the bathrooms next to, what would be next to the music room is what we would take out of the proposed plan for next year?
Yes.
Okay. Do we agree that the 2 classrooms in the Elko are something that we would go after with either capital reserve and or operating budget either next year or the following year?
Yes.
Good. And so what we want to ask, and I'd say direct, but ask Mr. Dowd and Mr. Thompson is to begin working with, I'm going to say first with Trident, right, to discuss that we want move the front office, the main office, to the front most likely, but we want them to assess this. So it's the main office. I would say it's then moving the library to wherever it's going to be, if it's, keep with the current design. So it's the library. And 2 classrooms. And the sprinklers. Those are the 4 things that we're saying have to be in this plan, correct? Now, I'm going to bring up a couple other small things, but are those the big things that we're saying we want to direct to be in some sort of design and plan for next year's warrant?
Yes.
Did I miss anything? Big things.
Yeah, and it makes sense too, because between the sprinkler, the front office, and then doing the media center, that's probably going to get you right around 5 million, and then the alcove we might need that to push it up and over.
Right.
So, but if that pushes up and over, we put it on the warrant. If not, we can take care of it internally. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense to me.
I think those 2 classrooms are part of this request to Trident, but if we're underneath that 5 million, then we put those in. If it's not, we still want to get the pricing as totally separate, not in parallel, right? Because I know a few years ago we'd said, well, what if A and B pass? We're considering those 2 separate plans, and we'll decide at a later time, later in this year, if we want to go forward with that for next year or not. And if it does, that will help to reduce some of the project management fees. Now, I guess there's a question though with this. If we go with this, Mr. Thompson, which is, if we went with this and let's say it passes, we also have construction work that needs to be done on the main office. I think I would suggest we carry that in our operating budget, not in the overall warrant, because I can't imagine that's going to cost, I'm going to say a huge amount of money, but I think there's something maybe Mr. Mackey can help to assess. I don't know, Ms. Thompson, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, if we were to move the main office out and move special education in there, we could utilize that space immediately. It's not ideal. There is some modification to the space that is going to be needed, but we can certainly absorb that in the operating budget.
Okay. And what about the library? So let's just say this passes, and we, move the library. Do we have to do a lot of work in the current library spaces in order to transform those into permanent classrooms?
No, other than the fact that, we recognize that we have some issues with the roof. But other than that, I think we'd be able to fairly seamlessly make that move.
Okay. Is there anything that we're missing that you would suggest is in this plan or not in this plan? Because, being superintendent with, fresher eyes than us, is there anything else, knowing, the conundrum we're in, right? We know what we want long-term, but we know we're also looking for something that's going to pass. So.
Yeah, there's a number of priorities that we identified, which was, the original need for the $12 million project. Now we need to create some priorities. And I think the 3 that we've identified go a long way to address the most immediate needs. But there also needs to be a long-term plan for those other pieces. And the plan that we will be able to move forward with, I think, has somewhat of a domino effect, right? We create a new main office space. Now we have created new special education space. If we're able to create new library media space, we now create more classroom space. So there's some priorities, like you'd indicated, with the music room, the cafeteria, the nurse's office. These are things that we're going to put as more of a long-term goal, but we'll be able to achieve several of these short-term goals with what we're potentially proposing.
Okay.
Can I just add one more thing? So I sat in this room the night of the vote, and I really was confident it was going to pass, and it didn't. And that was a very tough drive home, probably the toughest one I've had so far that I've been in Hampstead. And the next day, I had the opportunity to go over to the central school and spend some time in the classrooms. And I walked away feeling a little bit better because I had the opportunity to observe just the absolute incredible things that happen in this building every single day. Our professionals continue to rise to the occasion. They work with all of these deficiencies to make sure that, the education that kids are getting at Central School, it is top-notch. Now, I hope that we get to a place where they don't have to work around these deficiencies, because I think there's a ton of value added. But I just wanted to take the opportunity to mention that, yes, it was, it was a tough day, the day after the vote, but when I went to the Central School, I saw teachers doing what they do best. They'll continue to do that. We will get where we need to be, even if we have to create long-term and short-term goals. So.
All right. So, I don't know if we need to take a vote on this right now to, give direction. I think we've aligned on what we're looking for to be part of the plan, and we all agree on that. I think one thing that I would like to do as well and ask the board members if they agree or not, but one thing that's been on my mind is we are in challenging times. We are, you know, with how the inflation, costs going up, et cetera. I would like to see more than one quote come back on this plan. I would like to see Trident go to more than one GC, because I think that this would show also to the community, you know, in the past we've only gone, and I would say only gone to Trident and DPS. I do have faith that, you know, they do give the best price, but I think this will just raise more confidence and trust that we've been building up. And I think this is one of the missing pieces. Not the only one. There's a lot of building blocks to this. But I don't know if you know, I'd like to hear from other board members if you agree with this.
I think we should. Doing our due diligence, making sure that we are getting the best bang for the buck. Yeah, I think to make it more transparent, to make us more trustworthy and the community to buy into this, I think it only makes sense to get more than one quote on it.
Yep. I agree. Good. Mr. Dowd, any input to this?
From a timing perspective, I have some grave concerns. If we're looking to get something in by June 30th, I need a very high-level ballpark price for June 30th, well before June 30th. And I think a multiple vendor situation gets difficult. It doesn't get difficult for the project as we're presenting it for the March ballot.
Yeah, but I think that if one company can come in and give us pricing before June 30th, then why can't two? You know, I think that we would challenge, my suggestion is challenging Trident to get two. But if they get one before the other and at least they feel confident that that's, you know, then that's fine. But I think that I would, again, if one company can, I can't believe a second company can't do the same thing.
But we'd still have the plan.
Right.
So could you still do what you need to do by that date, knowing this is the plan, it's gonna be the same plan, we just might have two different quotes. You have to say exactly who's working on it, or is it just a ballpark?
Well, if the second quote comes in lower, we've already put together the plan for the first quote. It's easier to bring it down than it is to go up. So,
yeah.
So let's.
Sorry, I just want to say, here's my concern is that if we go with one, let's say it's $5.6 million, and then we come in and we get a second one after the June 30th, and it comes in at $4 million, I couldn't bring a plan with the $5.6 million construction company, and then that puts us under the threshold of what it is for a state reimbursement. So we want to get after the best price and, you know, going after that $5 million for state reimbursement, that we have to have that healthy mix. So I want to have confidence personally that no matter who we would go with for doing the general construct, you know, the GC, it's going to be that, you know, that dollar figure. Don't get me wrong, if it's $4 million, that's awesome. That's even better. But we know that for that state reimbursement, we need to hit that $5 million threshold. I want to make sure we get the most for it.
I can certainly challenge Trident to do that. I'm concerned right now, and I'll share with the board, I'm very concerned on the timing right now. So we're meeting again on April 12th, and I'm not sure what we have at that time. Am I going to be looking for a design plan? Are we looking for a fundamentally new approach? Are we breaking up what we have to make it work? Because we have April 12th, and then really I just have May and June to get
we can do a special board meeting also. So just because we only have one board meeting in April doesn't mean we can't meet April 15th, April 20th, April 21st, April 23rd, whatever it is. So, you know, I'd be challenging Trident to say, here's what we need. Here's what the board's requesting. And what's the best plan? And again, if they think that there's a better plan with a different design, well, let's hear what that is. But we also have our current that also has what we're looking for. So balancing this and looking for Trident to really help us, you know, which direction to go.
If they can fit what we need in the plan that they have.
That's easy.
And you know,
That's the most efficient way to do it. So I would take the main office and the library with 2 classrooms.
And sprinklers.
And sprinklers and just have priced out.
That's part of it. And then if it doesn't hit the 5 million, we have the 2 classrooms, that's the
code.
Right. So that's the one that would teeter on whether or not it's in the plan or not.
So I don't really need to worry about the architects.
I mean, if they think that,
They need it based on what they have to do.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't.
well, let's say, propose it to them, and if there's a better design, let's just say, I'm just gonna make up, if the current design is $8 million, right? Just with what we're saying, the
Yep.
4 things. But they say, but there's a better way to do this now. Material prices, the land, whatever that looks like, and they say, but we can give you the same thing with this different design for $6 million. Let's go to the $6 million plan. Well, we don't need to stick with this plan.
Right.
You know, if it's not the most efficient dollar figure based on what we're asking for, right? Because, again, 3 years out, 4 years out, we can decide, well, what's the best, well, we know where the cafeteria would go. Let's be honest. We know where that's going to go. Maybe there's a better way the music room would go in 4 years or 5 years. Maybe not. Maybe you stick with that. But this is where we want to know. And because we only have 3 months to do this, you know, time is of the essence. Any other thoughts, questions? I know it's already pretty late on this, so.
I feel like Jeff can convey what we're looking for to them and make decisions, and then always come back and update us on it.
Yeah. And if it helps having board members available for those discussions, I think that also makes sense. I know this past year, board members weren't in all those meetings. I think having a couple board members would make sense as well. Not to schedule around board members, because I know board members during the day have day jobs as well, but it's something that I think that having a couple board members be part of this would make sense. So we're lockstep. If there's questions, we're able to answer on behalf of the board.
So I'll have to get pricing as well from our vendors.
Yep.
Okay. As to what, if, I don't, for Trident and for BPS or whoever, we're going to have to pay to get those designs priced out.
Right.
So, okay.
All right. I'd ask, you know, board members, anybody that wants to be part of this, to be on those discussions with Trident. And, you know, it's really that 1-year commitment on this.
Yep.
So, anybody here wants to be part of it?
Yep, I would.
Jason? You all know I want to, but I don't, you know, you know, I don't want to be in front of her, you know. Yeah. So it'll be Jason and I then, if that's all right with everybody? Yes? Okay. So, all right. Any other
Sounds good.
questions that we can answer right now, Jeff or Mr. Thompson, that we haven't? I appreciate the discussion on this. I appreciate Mr. Gillette with his information. Appreciate the input from Diana and others. You know, and just to echo what Mr. Thompson said, you know, we really kind of glazed over it. Really appreciate the teachers, the administration that is day in and day out dealing with the inefficiencies over there. And that's why we're doing this differently now, is because we do uphold, you know, the belief of public education, of the students, that what they need, what the teachers need, administration, and what the community needs, and what they'll support. So, you know, I also wanted just to say I appreciate everybody that came out that day, whether you voted or not. It was great to have some really great conversations. I heard people come up to me and said, I'm not voting for this, and we had good discussion. I had discussions with people that said, I voted no before, but because of the information that you shared this year, you, the board, I'm voting yes. So it was just really good just to see that community involvement. And, you know, we're all disappointed in the past, but, you know, I'm just going to say one of the highlights for me out of all this, and it may sound silly, but we had, if not the highest, one of the top turnouts in any community in New Hampshire. So, you know, it sounds kind of silly. We're praising 37%, but you know what? Next town over got 10%, 12%. We tripled a lot of towns. We did it really well. We're going to push for more voting, but so that's one thing I'm really appreciative in this town is the community involvement right there, 37% in a non, you know, national election. It's pretty good. So, any other closing remarks before we move on to other topics?
Yeah, one more quick thing.
Yes.
Just want to thank Dr. Cheney and everybody else, all the teachers that came out on their nights to support this, to give tours, to educate the community. There was a lot of teachers present. There was a lot of community members present, and Dr. Cheney herself just put forth a very strong effort, and just wanted to acknowledge that and appreciate her for that.
Yeah. Probably give her a standing ovation if she was here, but, very much appreciate her and Mr. Schmidt and everybody else, so thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the strategic plan. Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, just to give a brief update on the strategic plan. The steering committee met on March 9th. We have a really solid rough draft. We'll continue to work on it. This afternoon, members of the strategic planning steering committee on the administration side met with building principals, reviewed some of the strategies and the core values. We're going to continue to seek input from stakeholders. And again, it's our intention to bring a fairly finalized rough draft to the board in April. We have 2 members of the board who serve on the steering committee, and I thought it would be helpful to hear from each of them in terms of some of the work that we're doing. So first I thought I'd start with Erin Pellegrini. She's been involved with the development of our core values for the strategic plan. So I'm going to turn it over real quick to Erin to talk about our core values.
All right, so when we started evaluating the existing strategic plan, we started with the core values section. We felt like the core values that were in there were not really values, but more beliefs, and they didn't really have much explanation or impact to them. So overall, we felt they could be stronger. So by definition, core values are traits or qualities that are not just worthwhile. They represent the organization's highest priorities and core fundamental driving forces. They are the heart of your organization and what its employees stand for. So we have come up with 5 core values. We have communicate with positive intent. We engage in communication that is honest in intent and transparent in its goals. Honor the child. We strive to make child-centered decisions that result in healthy and dynamic, vibrant learning environments for students and fulfilling and meaningful working environments for staff. Relationship and team building. We strive to build relationships that strengthen our team because we will accomplish more as a high-functioning team than we can alone. Act with integrity. When we act with integrity, we are honest, ethical, dependable, accountable, fair, non-judgmental, and trustworthy. And finally, culture of collaboration. We collaborate as a community for the betterment of the school district. We collaborate as parents, students, teachers, and staff with parents and community for the betterment of the school district. When we collaborate, we are curious about each other's thoughts, appreciative of the contributions of all, and focused on longer-term goals.
And so in addition to our values, we spent a lot of time talking about those values, and we have turned those values into what we're calling strategic priorities. And again, this is just a little snippet of what you'll see when we present the full plan in April. So I'd like to just take a few minutes to turn this over to Dr. Hubner, who's going to talk about some of our strategic priorities.
Yeah, and for this, it's basically taking the vision and turning it into action. So the priorities are what we'll use for action. Our first priority is empowering students to become expert learners who have the confidence to advocate for themselves and take responsibility for learning. This priority is really built around helping students direct their own learning. They become more motivated and engaged that way. Also really important, they gain confidence and experience in self-advocacy, like our student representative, that they're going to use throughout their lives. We want students that are going to be prepared to be self-sufficient members of the workforce, which is going to contribute to our community long-term. Our second priority is examining programs for effectiveness. With recent circumstances of COVID, we've had to prioritize the most essential programs. As we move out to return to full capacity, it allows us to examine exactly what programs are most influential to the success of our students. Any organization over time has initiatives that can exist out of habit as opposed to real need. We have the benefit of assessing our current priorities that we want to be exceptional at, such as socio-emotional learning and UDL. And as our capacity builds, reintroducing and adding priorities to this, while eliminating unneeded programs that which will make our district more efficient. Our third priority is fostering a positive school culture that honors the emotional well-being of our students and staff. Any number of factors can limit students from being able to perform at their best. We want to continue to be cognizant of how we can empower everyone in the district to be able to focus on academic learning by aiding in their mental, emotional, and physical health. You can't learn if you're not healthy. Our fourth priority is to continue to improve communication for our staff and community stakeholders. As most people know, before we became our own district, there was a struggle to create a two-way street of communication. While this has certainly improved with the creation of our own district office, we want to continue to be receptive to the needs of our community and staff, seek out new feedback whenever possible, and be responsive to this information. And then our fifth priority is to design learning environments that match our educational philosophies. We want our students to have individualized and dynamic experiences. The world is changing at a faster rate than we could have ever dreamed of. We want our teachers to have the freedom to prepare our students for that world. We want to empower our teachers to take risks and to try new things, to give our students a full and richer educational experience. And we also want them to see adults adapting, experimenting, failing, but being brave in order to model these learning experiences themselves. We need to develop students that are unafraid to risk, fail, and learn in order to maintain our role as a leader of innovation in the world. So we hope to continue to hone these priorities in the coming weeks and help the district to continue the exceptional level of education we've come to enjoy. Thank you.
Anything else, Ms. Thompson?
That's going to do it.
All right. So after strategic plan is superintendent evaluation directive. Board members, as you're aware, we have the newly adopted policies, CBIR, for the superintendent evaluation that will start pretty much immediately. So this is to give the directive to start that superintendent evaluation, which means board members will get the evaluation, as well as there will be a 360 report feedback that starts as well for the superintendent's direct reports. So we'll start that start tomorrow. So looking forward to first year feedback to Mr. Thompson. So, all right. Let's see. Next one is liaison assignments discussion. If I get that right. No, I skipped. I always skip something, right? All right. So the next one is on the school calendar, second reading with Nicole Tomaselli.
Hello, so you should have a copy of the calendar as proposed in your packets. I did want to draw your attention to a few changes just on the quarter's end dates will be different than we originally had drafted. I want to just make sure that everyone understands that those dates may move based on snow days. Quarter 1 is going to be on November 4th, and we can send you an updated version of this. Quarter 2 is going to be on January 24th. Quarter 3 will end on April 5th, and quarter 4 will end on June 16th. Of course, those are pending no snow days or other setbacks. Other than that, we are working with the bus company to determine the schedule for our routes for the early release days. Once Pinkerton Academy shows their approved calendar, we'll work it out. It will likely be less than a 3-hour window that the children we dismissed early, just so you're aware. And we can get those times out as soon as I have them. I'll share them with the board and the community. But we're very much looking forward to doing a lot more professional development this year, even if it's in small chunks throughout the year. We have a number of mandatory trainings from the DOE that are very hard to squeeze in without this time. And we have a number of instructional kind of goals with the strategic plan. You just heard a bunch that we would really like to start working with the staff on. So it's kind of imperative to get this calendar approved so that we can start scheduling our PD. We have things like new hire orientation and mentor programming that we have to coordinate for the summer, as well as other office kind of functions around payroll and benefits enrollment. All is kind of determined on this calendar approval. Okay. So if you have any questions, I'm available.
So I know that, we had this discussion last time. First time Dr. Hubner's seeing this. Just to remind everybody watching and either now or on YouTube at another time, is that, we did discuss about whether or not we wanted a calendar that was kids start before Labor Day or after Labor Day. The consensus on first read was that it was we were more inclined to do before Labor Day because of the time that we would, if you look at the calendar, we'd be getting out on the 16th of June.
Mm-hmm.
So if we started after Labor Day, we're well into the 20s, whether it's the 22nd, the 23rd, 24th, whatever that looks like. We all agree that it's pretty late for the kids, and the later we go in June, the less they're learning. Let's just be honest.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking outside. They want to go swimming, whatever it is. See Jack smiling because he's like, "Yeah, I'll be there this year." But it's we have to realize that we have those school days. Also, like we said last time, we may get into the year, feel that we're doing pretty good, and look at hours towards the end. So we might even get out earlier than the 16th. But I don't think, again, speaking for what we talked last time, that starting after Labor Day makes sense because of when we get out of school. Would we prefer, because there's some people who have vacations that over Labor Day, like we talked about, Mr. Giard was one of those that might have spoke to that. But it's I think that's an important thing to note. It's not that we want to start before per se, but because we are also on the back end having to realize that kids will be going well into the 20s as far as June 20th or beyond. This makes more sense as what we were talking about last time. But is there any additional input from the board members' considerations?
Yeah, I have a couple concerns. We have 8 early release dates built into the calendar the way it is now. That basically means if we have students that are in afternoon kindergarten, if we have half-day K, that we're going to be missing 8 classes, 8 days for those afternoon kids versus the kids in the morning who are going those 8 additional days. I'm still concerned, I know you said that you're working it out, that on those early release dates that I'm concerned that the bus schedule may not align with Pinkerton. So I'm interested in hearing what the bus company says when they do give you that information. And then going back to the early releases, by the time the students leave and the teachers and the staff gets settled down and then goes into professional development, are they actually getting enough time to actually take something away from that professional development so that it actually counts towards something, so it's beneficial to them?
I would say yes, absolutely. When you look at professional development, even when we have a full day, we often break it into 2 or 3 2-hour chunks because none of us, can sit and process and just listen and on one topic for 2 hours straight or for 6 hours straight. So we break it into different groups, have different tasks, and the schedule kind of is a jigsaw usually. So the idea of having 2 hours at the end of the day to tackle a focus, I think is very productive. Even if it were as little as 90 minutes, I think we could get a lot of quick trainings in that give people kind of a focused time to work. And the idea of having all of our teachers available to work vertically, to team, is really important if we're going to be doing some of these things that the strategic plan is kind of looking for us to do.
I'm just going to add on, because that was one of my questions I want to ask, is about a lot of time which is needed for development, for learning, for the teachers. We have a lot of their early release days. Would it make more sense to have a full professional development and take off 3 early releases? Now we're not impacting kindergarten as much. You're not impacting all the parents with 3, but it's more just 1 day. Is there any consideration there? Did you consider that? Is there anything we can do there instead of, because this is a big change for this district?
I understand.
Yeah, so I think, it is about trade-offs. Like there certainly, as we've communicated, there is certainly a need for additional professional development time. That's really the goal here. So we would entertain, any other means to achieve that. I can tell you, one suggestion that has been brought forward in meeting with teachers is, we have election day on a Tuesday next year. That's a day off, that's a PD day for teachers. Well, we have that Monday, which is a standalone instructional day. It was a very low attendance day. A lot of families took advantage of the additional time. So that's something that you can look at as well. I mean, we're certainly open to, being able to modify the calendar to achieve some professional development time. The only consideration right now is just time. I know a lot of parents are anxious to get this, to get the schedule for next year.
Sorry, and just one, I know you. Yeah, so I think that's one thing that, personally for me, because again, when Jason says the kindergarten class, there's going to be 8 days that those kindergartners are going to miss. My preference would be to see maybe a PD and not 3 early releases, right? And make that to what we were just saying, the PD be a Monday with right next to the, the Tuesday that's there.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to do 2 PDs in a row. I know when I train at work, I have 2 days, it better be lively, because if not, there's a lot of coffee I'm drinking, right? So I think I want to challenge the administration to look at, consolidating some of this, but that's, my opinion on that.
Yeah, and what we could certainly do is we could go back, review the calendar, bring forward an additional draft. What I would work with Mrs. Tomaselli to do is perhaps create a professional development day on Monday, March 6th, 2023. What that would do is that would extend February break. So we'd have, families would have the traditional February break plus the 6th and the 7th, which is already slated to be a voting day. We'd have PD. So we'd have 2 consecutive days of professional development on March 6th and 7th.
The other thing I think it's important to understand regarding kindergarten is 2 of these early release days are built in that really, I don't want to say can't be changed, but one is the last day of school. So that has been that's been historical here for a long time, that's an early release day. The other one is November, 8/7. That is an early release day that leads into parent conferences. So even, I think that day probably needs to stick so that we can host parent conferences.
Yep.
Particularly at the middle school, they do a lot of their conferencing that day.
Yeah. I think, Aaron, go ahead, sorry, Aaron, go ahead. Yep.
So I have some of the same comments. Is it been more impactful of teachers to have some full days as opposed to all half days? And I also, for the reason you had mentioned about low attendance and things like that, or parents being able to take their kids for like the long weekend, is it beneficial to move some of the early release days to a Friday? And I laugh to myself when I say this because when I was, my kids were in Sunday school, that used to drive me crazy. But now it makes more sense, to do it on Friday so that parents, if they had to take the half day anyway, they could make it a long weekend. And like maybe a little easier than a Wednesday. But I definitely have a big concern about aligning the half days with Pinkerton because I just don't see how it's possible. Because the buses can't leave Pinkerton until 12:35. And I talked to a bus driver and asked the times, and they said they can't leave. Pinkerton is not usually clear of students until 1:10 or 1:20. But Hampstead early release days has HMS dismissed at 12 and HCS at 12:45. And I know even with that, it's tough.
So we would not dismiss at those times. It would be later.
Okay, so it would be a longer.
It would be an early release day. There is no set time from the state that you would have to dismiss. You do have to serve the kids lunch, but we are looking at more like a 3/4 day than a half day.
Okay.
And I think we can get, and to David's point, when you have, 2 full days of PD back to back, it had better be lively, as opposed to like knowing that we've got 90 minutes next month, we're tackling this.
Right.
These are the 2 things everyone is getting done in these 90 minutes. I think it can be very effective, but I do agree that the attendance was very low on the day after February vacation because we had a PD day and voting the next day. So it really does make sense to me to, if we are going to consolidate, to look at that day of March 6, 2023. But it's important for the community to know that the early release days will not be half days.
Right. Okay.
I do think there's a danger, though, when you shrink the amount of professional development days. If you say you introduce something new, you're working on it in August, and then you don't sit down and talk with anybody for 2 months, you're going to spend that 30 minutes of that hour and a half just going over stuff that you learned before versus regular check-ins, and working on it monthly gets into a pattern and gets into a feel for that. But I don't know. I don't know which way to lean on this.
So I think we're hearing, I don't know, Megan, if you have anything in addition to this.
Not anything in addition. I think maybe getting another full day, like March 6th, makes sense, and cutting down on the number of early release.
Because if we can do something like that, we go from 8 early releases to 5 early, and a PD, So I think if we can look at that again and bring it back to the board April 12th at our next board meeting, I think that's what consensus. I don't know if everybody's good with that. It's another round to look at this. We'd appreciate that.
And can I just add, because I know as a parent, I know that I often want to know when the February break is and the April break. And based upon the conversation that we've had, we're really just talking about providing some additional professional development times for our teachers and doing it in a way that is least impactful to families. So we're not talking, so anyone who's anxious about when February break will be or April break, those are pretty much set. Those are not going to change no matter what draft we bring forward.
Right.
What we're really talking about is the possibility of extending February break by an additional day with adding March 6th. So we'll bring a draft back with hopes that we'd be able to approve it at the April meeting.
Yep. And if
Can
we
I
do
interject, please?
Oh.
Chairman Smith?
Yes.
I'm just curious if we are able to add another PD day. Is that what the board is suggesting, that we add an additional PD day on March 6th? Are we taking away one and replacing it, or are we adding another one?
We're asking the administration to take a look at that we have 8 early releases, and if we replaced like 3 early releases with 1 PD, can we do something like that? So now we have 5 early releases and an extra PD, and that lessens the impact to families to try to, and increases how many days the kindergarten class in the afternoon and a number of other factors. So that's what we're trying to do. Does that make sense?
Well, from a contractual standpoint, what that will do is it will extend the school year by a day, because we have to have a certain number of student days by contract.
Right, we need
collective
180
bargaining
student days, correct?
Yes.
And we also have to be careful how many PD days we have, because that goes into teacher contracts with HEA. So they work, I think it's 189 contracted days for the school year for returning teachers, anyone with 2+ years of experience, and new teachers do 190 days. So we have to be careful how we do that on the calendar.
And I have scheduled time with the association tomorrow. It's certainly a topic we can discuss.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Would be full days? Like, could you do one of them a full day, one of them a half day, or does it matter?
That can be tricky with busing, because again, as we've indicated, we really have to work around Pinkerton's schedule for busing.
The other week I would just put on your radar, and we'll talk about this, is Thanksgiving week. There are a number of districts that have moved to put PD the few days prior to Thanksgiving, and it might just be something that if we were to consolidate, that might be another week that attendance isn't. I would want to confirm and look through Power School, but attendance prior to Thanksgiving sometimes isn't so high.
Right. And I just want to say thanks to Melissa for raising those, because some board members who weren't involved with contracts don't realize some of those things are in there. So it's definitely a good consideration, so thank you.
And just to the point about half-day kindergarten, because I certainly hear that, we have one section of half-day kindergarten right now. And if we were to move forward with half-days, we can accommodate a modified schedule to ensure that we have equity between the AM and the PM as well.
All right.
But nonetheless, point well taken.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for this, though. I know there's a lot of work to go into this, and I know many people are, like you were saying, you'd like to get this confirmed soon so you can start thinking about what's going to be there. So I would expect that, April 12th, we do vote on which way to go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
All right. Let's see. Checkbox. All right. Liaison assignments. Okay. Typically, we don't talk about liaison assignments till later on in the spring. I don't know, if, Melissa, if that's like the 12th, meeting on the 12th, or if that's in May when we start to decide what the assignments are. Is that typically when we do that?
I think last year, I think we might have done the April meeting, and it's typically, I think previous to that, it was actually done at the reorganizational meeting, but I think the board decided that that was too early to do.
Yeah. And then, I want to thank Mr. Giard for bringing this one up, because I think it is proper. I like that we're going to talk about it tonight, but not decide, because one of the things that Mr. Giard brought up was, when he was new on the board, didn't know what this was and what was the commitment. So I thought that, I agreed with, and thought it would be good to put this on so we can talk about what's the commitment for these, so that when we come back on the 12th, we can decide, who wants to do what. So at this time, we don't want to go into all the ins and outs of this, but I think we do talk about if we've been the liaison, what it is, the time commitment, so that way when we come back again on the 12th, we can start to say, okay, who wants to volunteer for this? Or you can even talk to me, talk to whoever about more information about what's there that's needed. So I'd like to just go down through these kind of quickly and just give a quick, couple bullets or whatnot on each one of these. So I'll start with facilities. I've been on facilities for the last couple of years. I meet with Mr. Mackey probably 3-4 times out of the year. I do a complete walkthrough of the buildings. We talk about the 5-10-year plan. Really get into looking what's in the corners of each room and what's in the building to understand what all the work is doing, and also to understand how much money we're saving for the district by doing a lot of the work in-house. So it's a good way to know the facilities and get to know everybody that's using them. So that's typically and it's really up to you. Mr. Mackey will meet with you every week if you want, but I try to spare him meeting with my mug every week. So usually I try to meet with him once a quarter and just walk through the building and talk about what's going on. And very heavy, of course, during budget season to talk about what it is that's in that plan and making sure we're talking about 1, 3, 5, 10-year plan and how we can spread the wealth. Go down the next one, special needs with Megan.
Sure. So I'll say that the past year I didn't have, Tracy and I did not meet regularly. I would say it was pretty heavy. Most of our interaction was around the budgeting season. I think it helped, or not that it helped, but she does present at times during the superintendent's report. So that's where she shares her information.
Okay. All right. Technology.
I would say it's pretty much the same as what Megan just described. A lot of that interaction came during budget season. But there was some information passed on from time to time throughout the school year. I'd say maybe, you're looking at 30 to 45 minutes a quarter. But a lot of the interaction came during budget season when we broke out into little committees.
Okay. Policy committee, Mr. Giard.
So that one is currently the third Tuesday of every month. It's a group of about 7 or 8 of us. We typically meet at the central school, and most meetings are about an hour long. Some of the policies are in depth, and some of the policies carry over from one meeting to another. But it is the third Tuesday of every single month I think we meet at 10:30 in the morning.
Okay. So that one is structured more than the others. Okay. HMS, regular education and curriculum.
That really sort of depends on time. Usually just reach out to where you are, reach out to them, and then usually meetings are an hour. Depends. So we have usually response to school typically, but I think maybe done 2, 3. That's probably not enough. Depends on what's going on at the school, and we can kind of make that schedule however that works.
Thank you. HCS, I know Caitlin's not here, so I'm going to assume HCS is pretty much the same. That it's meet at at will and however long and whatever time, negotiating with Dr. Cheney and Mr. Schmidt. Vouchers, Aaron.
Oh, they're super fun.
They are super fun, by the
For
way.
you
We
or
have
the
a lot of fun.
administration?
Well, I think they like my Post-it notes. There's all the Post-it notes all over everything. It takes me, I usually there a couple hours. Probably a couple hours.
And sometimes if Bubbles is there, it takes even longer than.
Okay. Safety committee, I know Caitlin's not here. I'm not sure if anybody's been on the safety committee besides Caitlin.
I'm on the safety committee at Londonderry.
Okay.
And usually they have 6 schools, so you do one school walkthrough a month with the fire and police, and they go through stuff. But
Right.
do you guys do that more often than that?
Yeah, so we have the standing safety committee. In fact, Mrs. Denola, we have an upcoming safety committee, correct? Do you know the date of that?
It's not scheduled yet.
Okay, yep.
It will be in the next few weeks.
So it's like once a month?
It's quarterly.
Quarterly? Okay, so once a quarter. Okay. And then we know who the Hsdsb delegate is, so we don't have to go over that, but we know it's in the winter, and we get lots of great information. Okay. So just think about that, considerations. I don't know, Mr. Jarrett, anything else?
Did you want to talk about the communication committee? You missed that?
Oh, missed that one.
Right over.
No, I told you, I always skip something.
It might be time for glasses.
You
Yes,
failed to communicate
trust me,
about the communication
I-
committee.
Squinting.
So for Dr. Hubner, who wasn't with us last year, the communication committee was something that we started last year. One of the things that we learned from the town was that they wanted more transparency, more communication. So we could have done a much better job this past year with this, and I'm going to take ownership of that. We started off pretty hot and heavy. It was myself, Mr. Gillette, and Mrs. Warnock from the select board. And we would meet and we would talk. We were trying to do it once a month during the beginning of this. And then as lives got busy, we kind of separated a little bit. But it's something that definitely we need to look at getting back on track, and especially around the community newsletter.
Yep.
Making sure that we supply them with some good information on what we're working on, what's going on. The renovation project, however we decide to move forward with that, putting that information and getting some of that information out to the community through that would be beneficial. But there's nothing really structured with that yet.
Yep.
I'd say probably about an hour to an hour and a half a month would be max on what the commitment would be.
Okay. Yeah, and I think we'd like, when we meet in April, I'd talk a little bit more about this one with, what other responsibilities with this? Because I think that there's a lot of potential here to work with the town.
Yes.
Especially where they're working on their master plan and their capital investment plan, that there's some things that we can make sure we're partnering with. Like we've talked about, paving as an example. Let's get those contracts, having this person be that liaison and pushing on that as a responsibility, I think would be good.
Agreed.
Okay. Any other questions on liaison committee? Okay. All right, so next, board members, you do have policies in front of you for a reading. We have second reading and adoption on 2 policies. And then first reading on, second reading on 1 policy, first reading on 2 policies. So in front of you, you have the second reading on policy JLF, reporting child abuse or neglect. And then also in front of you is the first reading for JCA, change of school or assignment based on best interest and manifest hardship. And JEC, manifest educational hardship. So board members, if you want to take a moment to take a look at those. For, I don't know, Mr. Giard, if there's anything you want to make mention of these since you're on the policy committee, anything worth noting to highlight changes or information?
I am not going to be able to do it justice. There's a lot that goes into these. A lot of them, from my understanding during the meetings, were legal changes, things that were changed by law at the state level that we had to incorporate into our policy. The specifics of it, they are outlined, they are very detailed. It gives good step-by-step instructions on some of them on what to do in certain circumstances. Mr. Thompson, am I missing anything? There was a lot to these.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can use the second read of reporting child abuse or neglect as an example. It really sort of codifies into policy a lot of our existing procedures to begin with. And this was the result of a change in the statute that occurred in 2019. Really specifically with this policy, they added in some language where they quoted the New Hampshire Code of Conduct for Educators. That was the specific reason they changed the statute, was to include that language.
I'd like to separate these because you got second reading and first reading, so I'd like to look for members to, if there's any, make a motion to accept for second reading policy JLF, and if we have any questions, comments, we can do that, and then separately we'll look at the first reading for the other two policies. So, members, if you don't mind taking a look at JLF, and I'll be looking for that motion.
I'll make the motion to adopt policy JLF after the second reading.
I'll second that. So, any questions, discussion? All right, all approved, please raise your hand. All right, passes unanimously. All right, so now we, Ms. Thompson, if there's anything you want to give an overview on the policies, first reading, JCA or JEC?
So yeah, essentially, JCA is a change of school or assignment, best interest and manifest hardship. It outlines a process by which a parent could petition first the superintendent and then, if necessary, the board for a reassignment based upon a manifest educational hardship. Again, there was an existing policy. There were also some recent changes in the law that took place. The highlighted change essentially is that if you were to look on page 4 of 8, under 2B, Roman numeral 2, it says the students transfer to another public school, public academy, or approved private school within the district of residence. So essentially they added language to allow for private schools to be added for reassignment, was the big change in the law. And again, this policy update puts us in compliance with New Hampshire RSA.
Yep, looking at it. Thank you. All right, we'll be looking for the board members to make the motion to accept for first reading policies JCA and JEC.
I'll make the motion to move them to second reading.
Okay. Any discussions, questions about this? All right, all approved, please raise your hand. All right, passes unanimously. All right, so we're getting there. So next, board comments and correspondence. This is what I typically do. Start to the left and move on down. So, Mr. Giard.
Nothing that's already hasn't been covered. We had a policy meeting last week. We just read the policies that we discussed during that. Kudos to this middle school kids and everybody that was involved in Legally Blonde. Just a great job there as always. The staff members, the students, everyone that was involved, just thank you and great job. Welcome Dr. Hubner, and that's about it.
I just wanted to thank the district office for getting me up to speed as quickly as possible and having a great packet, and everybody on the board for helping me to get my feet wet, because it could be really easy to drown without that. So thank you guys.
All right. I got a few things. Attended a meeting at Central School about the school being involved with the St. Anne's Community Garden, which was really great and really interesting. I was there with Megan. And to hear what the school is doing, it's really the first time, I don't say first time, but getting really involved with the community like this, in putting a whole curriculum around it. It's, really great to see. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity for now, and I look forward to see how it's going to be built in the future. Then right around that same time, I attended a retrospective about the school edition with a number of administration, Mr. Thompson, Nicole, and just a whole bunch of other people that were talking about what went well, what are challenges, what are things we can do better, and I look forward to putting that into a plan and really executing all throughout the year versus just at the end of the year. So I think we have a lot of momentum, a lot of power here that we're going to tap into for the next 348 days, and who's counting? All right, next, I went to the Legally Blonde Junior, amazing show, fun, exciting. It was June, yeah. It was a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. It was great to see how many people showed up too. It was great to see, live. I think Mr. Robinson said that it was live for the first time. So it was great to see a lot of just a lot of fun. I went to the boys basketball game over at Timberlane. Well, we would have liked to see different results against the T word, but it was great also to have, it was fun though. It was fun to see how, a bunch of scrappy kids. I mean, I looked at our team, which was, it was David versus Goliath almost, but they were very small kids compared to the players that they were challenged by. And even though we lost, it was really great to see how much fun and the number of Hampstead residents that showed up in hooting and hollering. And I think we almost had one person get almost tossed out of the game. But hey, but it was fun. And then the last thing I'll make mention that I went to, and this is going back to what we were talking about, the communication committee. I did go to the select board meeting this past last Monday, to talk about what's called an impact fee. So right now in our town, we don't have what's called an impact fee, which is traditionally put on either homes that are brand new built and or homes that sell. That impact fee is used across a lot of communities. Right next door to Plastow, Londonderry, Derry, they all have these, which is it's a tax on a home sale or on a brand new home, and that money goes into a general fund for the town to use for infrastructure purposes, like fire departments, like police departments, like our schools. So I brought that to the board's attention, the select boards, and it did go on to their action register, which means that it will be carried throughout the year with statuses, as well as they made note that, yes, this is something that's interesting to do, yet it would need a warrant article vote next year, so we have a year to figure it out, or 348 days, whatever. But it also, we need a master plan and a capital improvement plan in order to assess if we need an impact fee or not. You can't just go out there and say, I want to put an impact fee. You got to have a reason for it. So that's why it's important for the town to come together to say what is going to happen in the next 5-10 years with that master plan. So I was really thrilled to hear about that. And little birdie told me it was also brought up at the planning board meeting, and it was a vast amount of interest there as well. So I think it could have some momentum and help our town in the future with infrastructure needs. So that's it.
So I attended Legally Blonde as well, and it always warms my heart to see our students doing things that they're so passionate about, from the stage performers to everyone behind the scenes, the people moving the props, and then the people doing the tech. So it was really great. And as David mentioned, I also attended the garden meeting at the Central School last week. This is a big initiative that I think is right in line with our board goals to promote outdoor learning as well as community-based learning. And it's just so perfect. It's like the best way to really empower our children to really get to see how connected they are with, connected to themselves as well as the rest of the world. We're fostering community-based or a sense of community, and then also it was great to hear all the different ideas that the teachers and staff are coming up with to work the garden into their lesson planning. Really excited to see how it comes along.
Well, I also went to Legally Blonde. It was pretty funny. This morning, this afternoon, I was like singing that "Oh My God" thing. And then my son started singing something else. I was like, "Thank you for getting that out of my head." And now he was great. I love the kids. I love watching the kids. So they did a fantastic job. And I do want to congratulate, even though they were here and be able to say, congratulate all of our sport teams and the VI team. And I'm super happy to hear about all the Hampstead kids that have been really excelling at Pinkerton, and it's great to have you around again. I think I'm missing something, but
All right. So we're going to move on to consent agenda. I know it's getting late, and but there's some good information from Mr. Thompson. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with the personnel report. I have one item on the personnel report for professional staff. I have a resignation from Susan Dower, who currently serves as the HMS school nurse. That would be effective on June 30th, 2022. And it obviously goes without saying that Susan and her counterpart, Deb Houston, at the Central School, they're the reason we've been able to stay open this year. They've done such amazing, tremendous work. So Susan's departure will be a huge loss for our school district.
Just to say, echo that, we have very great nurses at both middle school and Central School, and we really appreciate everything that she's done in a long time. So I really appreciate this. So I think make the motion with regret, of course, but really want to communicate. So when you see her, please, and I'll make sure I stop by and see her, that we really appreciate everything she's done over the last few years in keeping our kids safe, healthy, and providing a lot of good input on how we move forward. So her expertise and experience has yielded great results for us. So I make the motion. Second. Comment, discussion?
I just, she's always been very nice. I really appreciated anytime I have a question or something to her. She always very pleasant, very friendly, very welcoming. She's a miss. She did a great job. And definitely miss.
All right. All approved? Raise your hand. All right. Thank you. All right. Ms. Thompson.
Moving on to the superintendent report, why don't we start with Mrs. Tomaselli, who's got a couple of quick updates.
So the garden has been discussed quite a bit. I just wanted to let everyone in the community know that our meeting took place amongst various community groups on March 16th. There was representation from St. Anne's there, the Hampstead Hearts were there, the school board was there, the select board had Lori Warnock there, myself and Dr. Cheney representing the school district. And it was such a great collaborative session to kind of get organized and divvy up tasks and figure out who's doing what. And it was very important for me to realize what our role is here and what's realistic. And I think the school's role is really seed starting. This is our biggest push is seed starting, and then we'll also integrate a variety of curriculum lessons, looking at inquiry-based learning and comparing and contrasting seeds, germination rates. I wanted to say that Sarah Weiscarver attended the local garden club meeting recently, and they were so generous and donated a bunch of kits that we are now going to replicate in our classrooms. So they're the little 6-pack kits, and they fit inside a nice Ziploc bag, and that model works great because it warms up very quickly. And I'm going to be asking the community for donations of Ziploc bags and 6-pack kits. We already have a lot of seeds donated from UNH's Free Seeds for Schools program. We have a lot of soil generously donated by Home Depot with the assistance of Mr. Gerard. And we're going to talk about the rows in the actual garden after we get the seedlings going. But we also have another landscaping company that's going to make a donation of topsoil to help amend the existing community garden. So this is well underway, and it's kind of taking on a life of its own, which is really awesome to see. So parents should be on the lookout for a Sign Up Genius, where we're going to look for trays in those plastic 6-packs of seeds. The trays need to be able to hold water and some Ziploc bags. And we'll probably put some Amazon links in there if people want to ship things directly to the school. They're pretty low cost, and that will really help us have a uniform system in all of our classrooms. So we're excited about that, and then we'll distribute those materials the beginning of April. We're targeting April 1st as a distribution day so that everyone can have their seedlings going by April 8th. We will need those donated items by March 28th, but I'll send a district alert out with all the details. Another exciting piece of this is the Cooking Matters program. So Jim Carey from the St. Anne's Food Pantry mentioned that in years past they had done a Cooking Matters program, which is partnered and sponsored by the New Hampshire Food Bank. So it's an instructional 6-week offering where a family would sign up, come to the actual kitchen, learn a recipe, they donate all the supplies, they would make the recipe and then stay and eat. Of course, they hadn't been able to do it with COVID, so we're very excited about partnering with him, as well as Julie Barbick, our school social worker, is going to be involved in getting this off the ground. But it will be open to all families, and we're going to try to run at least one session, if not more than one. In other news, tomorrow afternoon, there is a team from Consolidated Communications coming to Central School to do a walkthrough of kindergarten. A few weeks back, Consolidated Communications awarded us a grant of $3,900 to bring our kindergarten classrooms up to a standard of blended learning that was on par with some of the other grades. And in a blended learning environment, we have flexible seating options, we have devices for every child, we have document cameras, we have apps for every child. So they are coming to kind of see all of that in action. And we'll do a little photo shoot and a walkthrough, and we're very excited to welcome the local sales rep as well as the regional sales rep to attend. So Mark Avitel and Joe Weisenberger, as well as Shannon Sullivan, will be joining us at the Central School tomorrow. And I'm really excited to have our K-team, our UDL people, our tech integrator, Sushmita Krovi will be there. It's going to be a fun opportunity to kind of show what we can do now. That's it for me.
Great, thank you.
I just wanted to echo what several of the board members mentioned in terms of Legally Blonde. It was a fantastic show, and as Mr. Robbins highlighted, live theater is back. I think I got chills when he made that statement. But I also appreciated the fact that, I often walk through classrooms, and you'll see that really kind of quiet introvert sitting in the classroom. To then see them up on stage in front of hundreds of people, acting, singing, dancing, it really made me think, how wonderful of a job that this school and this school district does to really kind of cultivate the passions of kids, right? So that was really fantastic to see. Additionally, on March 9th and March 11th, we had a security audit done by the Department of Safety and Homeland Security, Scott Lambertson. So we walked both school buildings. We reviewed the previous plan. This audit happens every 3 years. The district should expect a updated audit report within the next 60 days. Oftentimes, boards would go into a non-public to discuss the items found within that report. That's a limited release report, so we don't necessarily want the contents of it to go to the public, but we look forward to getting the assessment of Homeland Security. Again, a number of the items that were discussed have been on the radar of the district and on the board in the past. Also wanted to just let the board know that back in September, when we were beginning the budgeting process, Health Trust, which is our insurance provider, gave us a guaranteed maximum rate. So that's a number that we use for budgeting of 14.2% for our health insurance. We received the final rate, which actually came in at 12.3%. So what that means is there's an approximately a $50,000 savings from what we originally budgeted to what we know will be the rate for this coming school year. So that's good news. I also just wanted to point out that on April 13th and 14th, the New Hampshire School Administrators Association hosts what they call the Innovations in Education Conference. This conference is the opportunity for the Superintendent's Association to really highlight some very innovative practices that are occurring around the state of New Hampshire. The Hampstead School District submitted a proposal based upon the work that we've done with connection coaching this year, and it was accepted. So on the 13th and 14th, Mrs. Tomaselli, along with Mrs. Griffin, will go to Concord and will present our model around connection coaching. So we're very excited about that. And in regards to connection coaching, because the number of students that we have in quarantine has gone down significantly, that work really has evolved. And now our connection coaching under Mrs. Griffin's leadership really focuses on kids that need remediation. We've talked about learning loss and students that have fallen behind as a result of the pandemic. Well, what teams at both schools are doing is they're analyzing data. They're identifying students that just need a little extra support. And then what they're doing is they're meeting remotely through Zoom with Lori Lynn, who's able to just provide them a little bit of that extra support. So we see that as sort of the evolution of the model that was created last summer. And I think that's going to do it for the superintendent's report, unless anyone has any questions for me.
No, just comment about the Legally Blonde. One thing I resonated, I think, Mr. Nola, you had said that over 50 students were a part of that. That's 15% of the school. You know, I mean, that's like 1 out of every 6, 7 kids are a part of the play. So just a testament to the, the investment in the arts here, which is appreciated, and and that's why we had so many parents. I mean, family members. Yeah. So I think the more we can do that, and I appreciate what Mr. Robbins did, what Mr. Hutchins did. Just want to say that again, just because I thought it was great.
And it's really remarkable. Like, I will come after school sometimes to touch base with Mrs. Denola, and the number of students that are in this building after 2:45, the end of the school day, you would walk through and think that school was still in session. There's just so many offerings for kids, whether you're a theater kid, whether you're into athletics, or the various clubs that are offered. This is a really fun and dynamic place to be at 3 o'clock, because the learning doesn't stop when the bell rings. It keeps going.
Yeah, I think that's important to remind ourselves when we come to budget season. When we think about that, where are we investing? In those, how are we investing? How are we supporting? We're supporting like another B team, right? So stuff like that, we want to make sure to give those children no different than a Pinkerton, right? You got a lot of different choices, a lot of different options. We want to do that during school day and after, so appreciate all the effort into that. I know it's no small feat. All right. I think that's it for the superintendent's report.
That is.
All right, we're almost done, everybody. Jake's got to get up in about, 7 hours or so, All right, so other business, old business. I don't have anything unless anybody else does, so we're good there. I don't believe we're going to non-public. We have nothing for a non-public. So we are looking to adjourn at 10:02 p.m., which I will promise we're not going to keep this up. We will not be looking to make this in every board meeting thing to be ending the public meeting at 10 o'clock. So with that said, we're adjourned. I don't think we need a motion. So, all right, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for showing up. Appreciate your help here, Matt, and have a good night, everybody.